In each of today's public hearings, the board reviews the correspondence that's been submitted both in support of and opposition to each of the cases. The board also reviews correspondence and recommendations from other government agencies, whether state or local, from sitting council members, in preparation for the hearings as well. In each of today's hearings, staff will present the slideshow presentation of maps, site plans, photographs, and other items that comprise the case file. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the appellant will then have the opportunity to come forward and make his or her desired presentation to the board. After the appellant's presentation, the board would hear from those wishing to speak in support of the appeal that's been filed. If the appeal has opposition, then the board would hear from those parties after the appellant and supporting parties have spoken. Then, after opposition testimony, the appellant would have a period of time made available for rebuttal testimony. Under BZA rules of procedure, an appellant has 5 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board if no opposition is present. For contested cases, both sides have 10 minutes to make the desired presentations. Again, that's 10 minutes per side, not 10 minutes per speaker. Should the appellant wish to provide rebuttal testimony, then he or she should reserve some portion of the originally allotted 10 minutes. At the conclusion of each case presentation, the board would then close the public hearing and deliberate and vote on the case at hand. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases under the provisions of the Metro Zoning Code, specifically section 17.40.180. All of the section numbers to which we refer today come from the Metro Zoning Code, which applies to the entire jurisdiction, or rather the entire jurisdiction of the metropolitan government. The Zoning Code was adopted by the Metro Council and took effect on January 1st, 1998. I'll introduce the entire Zoning Code and make it part of today's record for each of the cases presented. The Metro Code apparently requires a record of these proceedings. Because BZA meetings are recorded for public television, it's imperative that anyone addressing the board come forward and speak into one of the microphones. For the appellants, we've prepared a microphone here at the table to my right so that you can address the board on the microphone. All speakers should identify themselves by name and address. Anyone failing to speak into a microphone or properly address the board in that manner will not have their comments made part of the record. The Metro Code requires 4 members of our 7-member board in order to establish quorum. The code also requires at least 4 affirmative votes to grant an appeal. In the event that 5 or more members are present and an appeal fails to receive 4 affirmative votes, then the case will remain on the board's agenda for the next 30 days. Applications that fail to receive 4 affirmative votes within that 30-day window shall be deemed denied by operation of law. Pursuant to board rules, an aggrieved party may file an appeal of any board decision. Such an appeal can be filed by a writ of certiorari to the Chancery Court within 60 days of the hearing date. Additionally, an aggrieved party may file a motion for rehearing within 60 days of the original hearing date, pursuant to the very specific terms of the BZA rules of procedure. After that time elapses, the board's decision becomes final, and no further action can be taken. For the appellants, if your appeal is granted, you are in fact required to obtain the permit for which you applied. A permit must be obtained within 2 years for a board permission to remain valid. It should be noted that if any false or misleading testimony is presented to the board, any board approval could be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing before the BZA. Mr. Chairman, I would submit that all the cases have been filed in the proper order. All appellants have been notified by certified mail, and legal notice requirements have been addressed. With regard to preliminary announcements, there are a short list of cases that have been either withdrawn or deferred. We'd like to announce those at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Before we get started, I'd like to make an announcement that, one, thank you. Are these microphones working?
I think so.
Maybe not. Okay, there we go. It's an election day. Please go vote. Polls close at 7 o'clock. We are electing our vice mayor. It's the 5th time this year we're having an election, not including the 6th in November. I'm sure old timers will one day say, remember when we voted 6 times in 1 year? So do your civic duty, go vote for vice mayor. Congratulations to the newly elected school board members, Rachel Elrod, Jeannie Poo-Poo Walker, and Fran Bush, who are all normally sitting here, and we'd like to thank our school board friends for letting us come here instead of being in the Sunny West building. And speaking of Sunny West, our first zoning administrator. Bill Herbert was our second zoning administrator, but we have a new zoning administrator, and it happens to be John Michael. So congratulations, John Michael, on your elevation to zoning administration. The first zoning administrator, Sunny West, who served this city for decades and has a room named after him, which we normally meet in. And of course, we know what happened to Bill Herbert. He's now head of code. So John Michael, the bar is high. You've got to, it's interesting. Many of us have known all three zoning administrators. We thought Bill Herbert would have a longer tenure than Sonny West, but a bigger office is called. So John Michael, any words about your recent appointment before we overturn you?
I'm delighted to be in the position to follow the work of Bill Herbert in the manner that he did it so professionally and capably and with the best interests of the city always in mind and at heart, just as his predecessor, Sonny West, set the great example for us for many, many years, just as you alluded. Although I do not anticipate seeing a conference room named after me at any point, I have identified a recycling bin up on the third floor that I'm really gunning for sometime after my retirement 20 years from now.
Well, John, you've served the city well already, being a native of Middle Tennessee, growing up in Dixon, going to that fine university, Lipscomb University, and of course, University of Tennessee Law School. And as you're not wearing orange today, but know where your heart is. So once again, congratulations, and let's go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a robust docket today, as is usually the case in 2018. We have a number of cases, however, that have been either withdrawn or deferred to a later date. First, case number 2018-413 involving the property at 912 Main Street has been withdrawn as the remaining parking issue has been resolved via off-site parking agreement. Next, case 2018-451 involving the property at 3964 Woodlawn has also been withdrawn. Next, case 2018-459 involving the property at 321 Duke Street has been withdrawn. Case 2018-460 involving the property at 904 North 5th Street has been withdrawn. Case 2018-479 involving the property at 150 4th Avenue North in deep downtown Nashville has been deferred until our October 4th board meeting. And finally, case 2018-480 involving the property at 1301 Porter has been deferred one meeting to September the 20th of 2018. Those are all of the preliminary announcements with regard to our docket, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
For members of the public and our viewing public, the board utilizes a consent agenda. One board member reviews the record for each case prior to today's hearing and identifies the cases where the appellants have met the criteria for their requested action. If the reviewing board member determines that testimony in the case would not alter the material facts, then that case is recommended to the board for approval through this consent agenda. We will enter into the record those cases that have been so recommended today, and if anyone is here in opposition to one of the cases, please indicate by raising your hand, and we will remove that case from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Because of the layout of this room, my back is to you, so raise your hand so that we can make sure that Ms. Shepard sees it or that I see it while I'm turning. Thanks so much. Mr. Chairman, the proposed consent agenda includes the following cases. First, case 2018-384 involving the property at 6521 Jocelyn Hollow, a setback variance request. I believe you received the late incoming notice from the council member who supports the request. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 384? The next case identified for consent agenda is 2018-403 involving the property at 2407 Booker, a special exception request for a church construction in residential zoning district. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 403? Seeing none, the next case on the proposed consent agenda is case 2018-424, a case previously marked for consent agenda at a prior meeting, but that was pulled off at a later time. That involves a property at 1825A, 4th Avenue North, a sidewalk variance where there's been an agreement with the planning recommendation to pay to the sidewalk fund. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 424? Seeing none, the next case identified is 2018-448, involving the property at 312 Singer in the Madison area, a front setback variance. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 448? Seeing none, the next case on the proposed consent agenda is 2018-456, involving the property at 804 Timber, variance request for reduction in front setback. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 456? Seeing none, the next case on the proposed consent agenda is case 2018-457, involving the property at 2004A, 9th Avenue North, a sidewalk variance, where the appellant has agreed to pay into the sidewalk fund in accordance with planning's recommendation. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 457? Seeing none, the next case on the proposed consent agenda is case 2018-464 involving the property at 481 Franklin Limestone Road, a sidewalk variance request. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 464? Seeing none, it's worthy of note that the appellant and the planning department have landed on the same recommendation on that case as well. 2018-467 is the next case on the proposed consent agenda. It involves a property at 702 Murfreesboro Pike, a sidewalk variance request wherein the appellant, the planning department, and the district council member have agreed on the best outcome for that case with an amended variance request. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 467? Seeing none, the next case on the proposed consent agenda is 2018-471 involving the property at 1907 Cahal, a sidewalk variance request where the alternative sidewalk plan has been agreed to with the planning department and its recommendation. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 471?
We have someone in opposition.
Very well. We'll pull that from consent agenda and it will be heard in its regular order. The next case on the proposed consent agenda is 2018-473 involving the property at 1101 North 7th Street. Request involving side setback and sidewalk variance requests. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 473? Seeing none, the next case identified for consent is 2018-474 involving the very industrial property located at 3300 Ambrose, a sidewalk variance request. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 474? Seeing none, the next case identified for consent agenda is 2018-476 involving the property at 3304 Dickerson, a sidewalk variance request wherein the appellant requests permission to pay into the sidewalk fund. Planning agrees. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 476? Seeing none, the next case is 2018-477 involving the property at 5753 Nolensville Pike, a sidewalk variance request with an alternative plan with regard to payment to the sidewalk fund agreed to by the planning department. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 477? Seeing none, the final case on the proposed consent agenda is case 2018-481 involving the HPR development at 6108 California, in Council District number 20, wherein the sidewalk variance is subject to a request by the appellant to pay into the sidewalk fund and make repairs to the existing sidewalk as needed at that location. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 481? Seeing none, the proposed consent agenda for the board then involves the remaining cases: 384, 403, 424, 448, 456, 457, 464, 467, 473, 474, 476, 477, and 481. Mr. Chairman, we would humbly solicit a motion and vote from the board.
Okay, the following cases that John Michael has just read to us are been moved to consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'm going to abstain from 467, but
Okay.
if everybody else agrees, you don't need
Is
to.
there, okay, motion's been made and properly seconded for the whole consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? So, Mr. Taylor is
I'll just abstain from voting
4, 6, okay.
unless it's needed.
Okay, all those in favor of the any more discussion of the consent agenda? All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, and then one abstention. So it passes. John Michael.
With that, Mr. Chairman, we'll note for the members of our audience who had cases identified on the consent agenda, you're done. Your approval has been granted. You can come see our zoning staff as early as Monday to see about completing your permitting process. Although you're welcome to stay, you've been approved and you are free to go at this time as well. Mr. Chairman, here as we're getting started and ready to launch into our docket in just a moment, we'd like to take a minute or two to identify our elected officials who are in attendance at today's meeting. Today I know I've seen both Councilmember Brett Withers and Councilmember Scott Davis from East Nashville. So with that, we'll invite them to the microphone. Councilmember Withers, did you wish to address the board?
Thank you so much, board members, for your service and for coming out to a new location today. So I want to just speak briefly on case 2018-483 for property located at 927 Woodland Street in the 5 Points area. I did have a very productive meeting with the property owner and some representatives a little while back. It is an adaptive reuse proposal of what is currently a warehouse building there on Woodland Street. And the property owner is wanting to bring some more exciting businesses into that building, and that's something that I generally do support. There are some arrangements that still need to be made with regard to parking. You should have received some communications from neighbors, and some neighbors may attend as well. With the number of sort of restaurants, even live music venues and attractions we're having in that area, we are having parking crunches that bleed over into the surrounding residential area, and so the neighbors are not wanting to grant further parking reductions right in that area. There are some that I have supported that are literally on Main Street itself, because we do have parking lots nearby, like paid lots and things like that folks can use. But there already is a lot of pressure on Woodland Street as it pertains to being right adjacent to the housing. So neighbors do have concerns about further parking reductions on Woodland Street. It's my understanding that the property owner is wanting to continue working with planning on some, first of all, wants to retain the parking that is there, even though it doesn't meet our current code, and I definitely do support that for an adaptive reuse of that building. And then the property owner is wanting to continue working with the planning department and traffic and parking staff on perhaps on a shared parking plan, which I think also is a great idea. So I do support that, but not a reduction.
So Councilman Withers, I saw our former chairman, Chris Whitson, here. He was representing client, got on consent. But he would always, as a former member of the Metro Council, want the councilman to see if he could get both sides together a little bit more before they came here.
Correct.
Is there any way, I mean, I know you've been talking to probably both sides, would another meeting or two help this process, or where are you kind of in finding a solution?
Thank you so much for asking that. I mean, I think that would be fine. It's just up to the applicant. If they want to come before you today, they certainly can. I can't stay for that hearing. But it sounds like some communications
because it sounds to me you're not for what they're asking for today.
I'm not for a parking reduction. But I would be okay with them keeping the parking that they do have, which doesn't meet our current code. It's got, pull-in parking from being a warehouse use.
And that's not something that we are addressing now. I mean, we don't.
They're asking for a variance on parking requirements.
Do you know? I mean, I will ask them, but I don't see it in the packet. How many spaces are required? I know that it says they have 12 on site, and if they're able to keep the 12, how many would they be required to have?
That I'm not certain about, and it may depend on what the tenant mix is.
John Michael, how many spaces are they short for this East Nash? Okay, but roughly, is it like 10? Is it 20?
Could we ask Mr. Dean, because he's
Mr. Dean, okay, come here.
I represent.
Okay, yes.
Sorry about that. Councilman, how are you? Mr. Chairman, the idea here is to keep the existing parking.
We understand that, but.
And leave open what they're going to use the property for. They don't know yet. They've got a couple tenants they're working with. One use might be office, one use might be a restaurant. The other thing here is, although it says variance on that, we applied for a variance and a nonconformity. This parking is nonconforming, should get us around the problem of keeping the parking, and then we would use, by right, the off-site parking provisions in the zoning ordinance.
Oh, so you're prepared to do the off-site parking then?
Right, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm okay with all of that as long as they do keep what they do have. So I do want them to do that.
Okay.
And then keep working on other details.
That sounds good then, thank you. And what else, Councilman Withers?
That's it. I just wanted to express that parking is a concern in the neighborhood, and appreciate the applicant wanting to keep working to accommodate that elsewhere.
So in short, the only thing that you're supporting is if we have the ability to allow them to keep those 12 spaces as non-conforming, you support that, but other than that, no parking. I mean, if their use required them, which they haven't stated a use, but if their use required them to have 20 parking spaces, they could use these 12 if we gave them permission, and they'd have to find 8 off-site.
Yeah, but then Mr. Dean says that they've already done that, so that's the only.
But I just wanted to. Again,
some of those details haven't been worked out, but yeah, I definitely am in support of them keeping the parking that they do have there on
right,
Woodland.
because our agenda says a restaurant, and I heard something different just now, so I want to make sure I'm clear on whatever they use it for.
Yep.
You're for the 12 and nothing more.
I'm good with them.
Any other questions for Councilman Withers? Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you so much. Have a great
John
day.
Michael. Councilman Davis, come forward and tell us what is going on in the Great District 5.
Good to see everybody. Happy Labor Day. I just want to thank the code staff. I want to thank all the commissioners for their hard work and long hours they put in. We really appreciate it. Also, I'd like to congratulate John Michael on his battlefield promotion. You know what I mean? It's not every day that your lieutenant becomes a general. So we're very happy and excited about that. And I thank him for his service for all these years, Mr. Michael. Let's get down to it. I'm here for case number 2018-414-220 Duke Street. I'm going to do what I usually do. I'm just very consistent, but I'm going to explain why this one is this one. I'm asking for the sidewalk requirements to be waived. I'm asking for the in lieu fee to be waived. If you know about going down Dickerson Road, when you drive past Trinity Lane, you see there's a Piggly Wiggly that borders Duke Street, and there's a car lot. Going up to Duke Street, there's 3 huge vacant lots and 2 very large parcels where there's a development going in that when we were working out the details with the city and planning and with the residents, that large development will be doing the sidewalks for both sides. And a little bit, some of the side has sidewalks, but they need to be redone. So that 100 unit that's taking up at least 4 acres is going to be doing the sidewalks for all of Duke. And they're a large development. And I would rather them than the small businessman, because you have one company doing all the sidewalks, going up all Duke. That's one of the caveats so my neighbors wouldn't yell at them about it. And they're very close to Dickerson Road. So it's going to finish the sidewalks coming up off of the Piggly Wiggly and then do brand new on both sides of Duke, going all the way down to the end of Duke to a few others to Sultana. And they're also doing King. It's what I call the Royals because it's named after Queen, King, Duke. You know what I mean? Sultana. So we're doing the ones along Sultana also, and partly down Prince because, you know.
Prince too? There's royalty everywhere. District 5.
And lots of times, you know, reason why, that, you pass these expenses on a lot of stormwater infrastructure costs onto a larger development because their density will greatly impact the area more so than Mr. Kelly's 2 units. And furthermore, this is just how I've always been, and hopefully I think we're going to come to a solution soon. And I do not want to keep giving the board and my wonderful codes department more work. I know you guys can handle it, but I do feel bad sometimes. We're looking at where my in lieu fee, I can start using it for places that need sidewalks. As of right now, and call me selfish, it's my constituents that are inconvenienced by the dust, by the construction, or we got to take another route because they're working on a sidewalk, and they're taxpayers just like everyone else is. And if they're going to pay an in lieu fee, I wanted to go to fix something in my neighborhood.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Councilman Davis?
Thank you.
Thank you. John Michael.
Mr. Chairman, having consulted with both the council member and the representative for case number 483, you just heard from Councilmember Withers about that case. Based upon the clarifications that this is really more of a maintenance of the legally nonconforming structure of the existing number of parking spaces, not a reduction, and that no parking count requirement would fail to be met, but instead met via off-site, that case is been determined to be potentially eligible for consent agenda if the board wanted to move that way.
No, I would move that to the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more questions about case 483 being on the consent agenda?
And all we're approving is the non-conforming use, not a parking variance.
Right. Okay. All those in favor of putting 483 and passing it on the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose. Passes.
Very well. That case has been approved, and the appellants can come to the Codes Department as early as Monday to pursue the needed permits. Mr. Chairman, one final item that we should take up before getting into the docket improper, case number 2018-484, which involves the property at 6391 Pettis Road, is set to be heard today. As the board members know, there is what is in effect a motion to defer that has been filed with regard to perfecting the notice in the field as required under the zoning code. The board may want to take up the question of that deferral now rather than taking it up as the single last zoning case on today's docket, as it may be disposed of in a manner.
And since they're both represented by counsel, we'll hear from these lawyers and tell us why you're here.
Mr. Chairman, my name's Sean Henry, 315 Dedrick Street. I represent an adjacent property owner who is very capable, because of his proximity to the public sign that's along the street, very capable of seeing what is on that sign. And so what my client has pointed out.
Let's back up. I mean, tell us what we're talking about when you saw the sign.
Yeah, this is a case involving
Notice.
a kennel.
Yes.
And so we have the requirement for this board hearing is that a public hearing sign be posted at the property.
Okay.
That public hearing sign is intended for motorists that drive by the property to see what the case number is, the place, date, time, and location of the public hearing that we're having here today. So we've got 3 instances on that sign where that sign was not posted correctly. It initially had the wrong case number, and it also had the wrong location, being the other location you normally meet. Did not have this location on the public hearing sign until just a few days ago. And so it does not comply with what the Metro Zoning Code requires for 21 days notice, time, place, location for the meeting. So we simply are asking that this board not take this up and have the sign properly comply with the public notice sign requirements.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, I'd spent a good bit of last night watching this one again because I wanted to make sure I understood we've heard a lot of kennels, and I wanted to make sure I understood this. And so, you know, it was pretty clear that there were a couple of things that were clear. One was that it was to be noticed, that they would have to, the applicant would have to renotice this case, but it was also clear that we were going to hear it 3 months from then. So, I mean, I guess and the aggrieved parties were predominantly the next door neighbor and 2 other folks who came to speak. Now, other people may have had a problem with it too. So I guess if we were to defer this for a month to get you 21 more days, you know, it seems like that we would also consider extending their permit, extending their variance for another month, which would just kind of put off whatever resolution we have for this case. So is that what your client wants, is to continue the variance and put this off for another month? So
My client just wants the law to be followed, which is the minimum public hearing notice requirement. They're not agreeable to anything other than following the minimum public notice requirement. This is a new case number. This is a brand new case. So it's not as if we're picking up the old case and continuing it through. This was a new application. And so we're simply asserting everyone else has to meet the requirement for public notice. Let's make sure that this is met as well. And I'd like to file for the record just a little legal analysis on that, where I'm citing to the Metro Code, as well as the Open Meetings Act. So the Open Meetings Act for this very meeting applies by your rules. Your rules of procedure invoke the Open Meetings Act, and the Open Meetings Act requires all-encompassing public notice. And so that's all we're asking is let's properly notice this application, this appeal, and set it for a hearing that complies with the law.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Henry? Let's hear from another lawyer. Mr. Holloman, come here.
Thank you, Chairman Ewing. A couple of points. First, as Commissioner Taylor points out, there was a hearing. This is a short permit. And so at the last hearing, where I believe all of the aggrieved parties that are here today were informed of that date at that time, what happened with the public notice was simply that the wrong information was sent to us. It was printed. Once it was realized what was wrong, that was corrected, but that was not on my client, and we corrected it as soon as we were aware of it. Secondly, in terms of functional notice, obviously these parties have notice of the hearing here today. They're here, they're represented by counsel, and they have contacted you in advance of the hearing. So I believe that the public notice requirements have been met. They have functional notice both through the previous hearing and through the corrected signage. With that said, with the caveat that Mr. Taylor raised, we're perfectly fine to put this off 30 days, let that 21 notice day period run. The only thing that we would ask is that our temporary permit expires tomorrow, so we would ask for an extension extension of that permit until the issue is resolved here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Holloman? Okay, very good. Let's close this and discuss. Mr. Taylor, so lawyer need to tell us something? Okay. I agree with what you said. I think it's reasonable to put this off a month, allow the permit to stay intact until that time, and then to properly put up the red signs with the right information. What's everyone else think?
I'm agreeable.
Okay, do you want to make your motion like that?
And in terms of notice, I mean, I get, and I'm okay with that too, but I also, the appellant argued that they thought that notice was acceptable based on everything they said happened. If we were to err, do we err on the side of getting the letter of the law met, or has the spirit and the letter of the law been met already?
We asked it if it's an issue on appeal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, I mean.
And board members.
It's confusing to me why it's being requested, since everybody knew, and it certainly, frankly, to the applicant's advantage to have another month. So I'm okay with it. If that's what they want, I'm okay with it, but I don't see why.
I think this falls under better safe than sorry in appearance. So
Then that's fine. Then
Okay, make your motion.
And we can extend the variance?
Yes.
Yes, I believe you can do that.
Well, then I'll move that we postpone this hearing for 2 meetings, which should be.
And during that time, that the permit still remains intact.
Right. I'm just.
That should be the first meeting in October. I don't know the exact date.
All right.
We're trying to get the right
October
date.
4th, or 10/4 is the meeting that is 2 meetings out from now.
And will that be enough time for the 21 days?
That will be enough time to cure the 21-day issue. And of course, just as a practical matter, there's no need to go print a new sign. As long as the correct information is on it, you can Sharpie that and get the correct information on it. So we don't worry about the actual physical sign being changed so much as just the updated information being included on the sign.
And
so anybody
on
who sees it
October
can learn.
4th, we should meet at Howard School?
I'd never presume that anymore, so I'm going to ask the parties to email me tomorrow so we can confirm with Metro staff.
Okay, so motion.
So I will move that we defer this until October 4th. Also moving that the variance for a kennel being operated at 6391 Pettus Road be extended until October 5th.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, passes. John Michael.
Mr. Chairman, let's start our BZA meeting. Case 2018-366 is the first case on today's docket that the board will hear. This has been brought to the board before in this very room, in fact. The request from Ethan Colclosure on behalf of Gina Napoli, the trustee and owner of the property at 2812 Hillside Drive, is a request for a sidewalk variance. You've heard from the district council member, Berkeley Allen, from Council District 18 with regard to this property, shown here on the zoning map, an RS 7.5 zone property with 115 feet of linear frontage along Hillside Drive. And the aerial here giving you an idea, although somewhat faded in this photo, a well-treed area on a curved road, and as the name suggests, topographically challenging location as shown here on the site plan that was submitted. From my site visit earlier this summer, you can see the property in the lower right-hand corner here looking to the interior of the lot, the view directly across the street on the upper left. Now, the view up and down Hillside gives you some indication of the small retaining wall that's in place as you go. I guess that's slightly westbound.
And when John Michael's reading this, please come, will the applicant please come forward?
Yes, is Ethan Colclosure or any other representative for 366 present today? Mr. Chairman, third time this case has been set.
Okay. Board members, what do we want to do? Third time, they're not here.
they ever asked for a deferral?
Last time.
I think that the problem with this one is that I would prefer to defer it only because
Okay.
it's in the UZO.
Make a motion to defer it one meeting.
Well, I will, but I just 2 seconds. I know we got rid of our hot potatoes, so I got 2 seconds to say, because it's in the UGO and they're required, if we deny it, they have to build the sidewalks, and there are mature trees and neighbors who want to keep the mature trees. I think it's worth deferring, and so that's why, not just willy-nilly.
It says here on the permit tracking sheet, they are eligible to contribute to the pedestrian benefit
I thought I'd
zone.
read somewhere where they're not, but it just says there.
Well, the permit tracking sheet says that, so I
I
would.
believe that was my recollection also, Ms. Carpanek. And what you may recall from the comments shared by the district council member was there was some interest in possibly finding what I would refer to, I hope very benignly, as a creative solution that might represent some either partial payment, partial construction, partial variance, something along those lines. Just everybody acknowledged it was hard to figure out what that was. So she was quick to defer to your experience and expertise toward that end. But yes, I believe it was eligible as an alternative. One other note that's important, if the case was in fact denied rather than deferred, they could refile at a later date and bring it forward, but it would be much later, of course, and typically with residential projects of this nature, that's nearly fatal to the project.
I'll move we defer it indefinitely.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion?
I'm in agreement with this, but I will not be inclined to defer it again.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. 5-1.
Mr. Chairman, the next case to be presented is 2018-411 involving the property at 1026 Iverson Avenue.
And will those applicants please come forward?
Calvin Ecker is the appellant on behalf of Andrew Ecker, the property owner. The request is for 3 variances involving first the footprint restrictions, second the height restrictions, and third the setback requirements in this the RS 7.5 zoning district for the addition to an existing detached garage. The aerial map here shows you the property's proximity to the rest of the neighborhood. The hand-drawn schematic here gives some indication of the placement structure, and please feel free to have a seat. Photograph the front of the property from Google Maps up and down the street at the existing location. So is there anyone here in opposition to case number 411? There is. As a result, the appellants will have 10 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board. The opponents of the case will have 10 minutes as well. If you wish to save some portion of the 10 minutes for rebuttal, then you would want to do sort of this original 10 minutes. I think your blue microphone is set. Let me make sure.
John, has this been built?
Again?
Has this already been built, or is this hasn't been built, right?
I think partially is the answer.
Check. My name's Calvin Ecker of 1026 Iverson Avenue. First of all, this is my wife here, Amanda Ecker. But I come before you guys humbly, knowing that I haven't dealt with this process the correct way. This building started as a small project about 6 to 7 months ago. Had some guys helping me with it. Ended up turning into a bigger building. There's no excuse for my ignorance in the matter of not going about it the right way. But some of the reasons are we live in an area where it's street by street. I've learned since the building has been built that the zoning is, we're RS 7.5 that doesn't allow multiple dwelling. The street over on Manor Avenue is R6. There's several tall skinnies there. And the street over on West Kirkland is OR 20, which also has some multiple building lots. But I had all the best intentions, thought I was doing the best thing for my family. We're both musicians. We're here because we're dreamers like a lot of Nashville people are. One of our callings, I think, we've had several young musicians come in town that need a place to crash, and we provide that for them. I've had over 10 different guys stay with us for an extended period of time. So basically, the variance I'm requesting is obviously because it's already built. And what happened was my brother actually bought the property. He lives in Minnesota, so he can't be here today. But when we bought the property, this was back 3 years ago. There was a detached garage of 600 square feet that was unfinished, didn't even have a door on it. And the variance for that, I'm sure, didn't meet code. So essentially, the build that I did was just, I was finishing that, you know. Not that I did it the right way. I'm not making any excuse for myself. I'm just trying to get you guys to know where I'm coming from. But do you have anything you want to say?
No, sorry, he's very nervous. He's trying to kind of go away. Really, when we moved to this neighborhood, we're very invested in the neighborhood. We have that house, and then we have a house about 5. Brother has a house about 5 places down that we do as a rental and manage the property for him. And then we also own a studio over on West Kirkland. That's literally the street over, and then we rent a warehouse. So we're very invested in this neighborhood. We love this neighborhood. And having a child, we really wanted to, our first intention was to have the in-laws come in here and stay, things like that. Then we learned you can't have a dwelling. So we were like, well, whatever we can do to save it, turn it into an art studio for me or rehearsal space or playroom for the kid, whatever we can do to save it, because we are a new family and we are just trying to do our best, and we made a mistake, big one. And I'm going to save just in case for the rebuttal. And
okay. Yeah. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, let's hear from the applicant.
Chairman, there are actually people in the audience who wish to speak in support of this. We'll encourage them, of course, to allow some time for the folks who do want to save a rebuttal time.
Yes. Please come forward, state your name for the record, your address, and why you are here in support of this application.
Hi, my name is Gary Miller. I'm the president of the Maynard Neighborhood Association. I am neighbors. With me, I have Miss Henry Jones, who's the vice president of our neighborhood association. Fortunately, to have Miss Henry with me, she's 84 years old and still very active in our neighborhood association. I wish we could say that for a lot of people. I just quickly want to say that on their behalf, first I want to thank the commissioners for listening to us and for all your hard work. And speaking on their behalf, just the only information I have to share is the previous owners, Mr. and Miss Lawrence and Lisa Elkin, started the project on the garage. I'm not saying that excuses anybody for not getting the appropriate and proper permits, but they started the project, and Calvin and them basically just took the project and started adding to it without really understanding the processes and procedures that are necessary. Again, I'm not saying that that's an excuse or the way to do it. Ignorance is not part of the law. It's incumbent on them to understand what they're supposed to do. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Henry, say a few words, and we appreciate your time.
Good morning. My name is Henry Jones West. I live at 1027 Iverson Avenue. I've been there for 27 or 28 years. Vice President of the Maryland Association of the Neighborhoods. And I take very good pride in my neighborhood. And I have prevented 3 or 4 break-ins in my neighborhood because I'm watching. And the police has been caught, and they have caught the people. And I watches out for my neighborhood. And the people before Calvin, them, and Amanda, they started that project. And I don't know anything further than that because I didn't go over and research it or go over and see what was did and what wasn't done. I just went on what the neighbors were saying.
Okay.
And I want to thank you all very much for your time listening.
Yes, thank you for being here. And John Michael, we're going to hear now from the opposition.
Actually, can we have the appellants come back?
Okay, yes.
Because the appeal is not really about the fact that you operated without having a building permit. I'm sure the codes department will take care of that in a different way. Your appeal is more about, or it is about, the fact that you would like a structure that's roughly 200 square feet more than what's allowed by code, that you're requesting a setback of 4.5 feet from the property line when 20 feet is required, and that you're requesting a 4-foot increase in the height that's allowed by code. You're asking for 20 feet high instead of the 16 that's required by code. So your appeal is more about that, and what is your hardship that would that you can present to us about those requests.
As far as the setback to the side, it's a very narrow lot. Like I said, I went along with the current existing building. It's actually, the new build is further from the side than the existing building was. As far as the setback from the rear, it's exactly the same along the property line. It's about 4.5 feet. The height went up higher than expected because there's that side, the right side of the back property is on a hill. There was a retaining wall. It was an old rock garden. So that's why it went up higher than expected. And actually, it's from the actual land, it's 18 foot 8 inches. Not that that makes a difference, but it's still above 16.
It might make a difference, 18 foot 8 inches.
We have 5 letters of opposition, and let me read from a couple. One says, the structure has already been erected and appears to be quite imposing at 2 stories tall with minimal setback. We express our opposition to the variance. And then another letter says, it is not only exceedingly imposing eyesore, but also due to there being no gutter system on the addition creates a drainage issue on my property as well. Could you address those?
I had to stop. It was a stop work order, obviously. That's when I went through with trying to get everything the right way, so I couldn't.
But you were going to put a gutter or drainage system on it eventually?
Correct.
What about the height? You know, everyone says it's going to out of scale from the neighborhood, these 5 letters of opposition.
The height, there's actually a garage down the street that's just as tall. There's two houses just went up on the far left end that are taller than the building in the back.
But those are houses.
Correct. Well, the garage is on one end. It's a garage, but I mean those are probably grandfathered in. Okay. I understand that this is current and.
Okay.
In the same letter that Mr. Ewing is reading from, there's a comment that it says that this structure would serve as a second dwelling on the property. The new garage addition would be used as a family dwelling at times when the primary residence is occupied by short-term renters. Is that your understanding?
That's not the purpose of this building. We have no intent for financial gain. We're not planning on living in it, renting it, anything like that.
Does it have a shower?
It has nothing in it as of this time.
No, but will it have a shower?
I wanted to put a bathroom in it. Yes, we have inadequate bathroom space in our house.
But it will have more than a toilet, or will it have a shower?
It doesn't have to have anything. It doesn't have anything. It's just a box right now.
But as planned, are you planning on putting a shower in there?
Well, not if it's not allowed. I'm doing everything the right way from now on. I don't want to mess with anything.
Okay, got you.
I'm learning my lesson.
Any other questions before we hear for the opposition? Okay, let's hear from the opposition. please go back into the audience, and we're going to hear from the opposition. Yep.
Hello. Thank you.
Please sit there.
Thank you all for taking the time today. My name is JD Thomas. I live at 1024 Iverson, so I live directly next to the property and on Iverson, and my property then borders right against the new construction project.
And we have the letter, one of the 5 letters of opposition from you.
I did send in a letter. This is really hard for me, and you might be able to tell I'm nervous because they probably were friends of mine, and were very welcoming of us to the neighborhood, and they are good ambassadors to the neighborhood. That is true. The issue I have is that it simply is completely out of place. Just because the garage that existed there when he took it over is closer to the other property on the other side of him doesn't mean that he needs to take the new construction and move it inside the bounds on my side. I've spoken with the 3 neighbors that neighbor him to the south. All of them have a major issue with the way it looks as well. I mean, to the people that border the back end of that, I mean, they're basically just looking at a giant wall coming up over the fence.
Okay. Aesthetics aside, what's their other objection about this, the way it's being built or proposed?
Well, for one, he intentionally circumvented the system, so I have concerns long-term about what it will actually be used for, what the intention was from the beginning, and how that will be set out. Aside from that, I have serious concerns about privacy as well. It looks like there intends to be some kind of walkout patio, which would completely eliminate all privacy we have on our property at this point.
A walkout patio on the 2nd story, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's currently one that seems like it will overlook. I just come to you because it's just something that I couldn't not say something about. And have grave concern just about what will happen going forward. So.
And board members, there are pictures of what it looks like right now in the packet, and there does appear to be something that looks like it might be some sort of balcony, something on the 2nd floor.
Yeah, and the 18 foot 8 inches he's talking about, it is sitting on top of what appears to have been a garden at some point, but that doesn't really change how tall it is to the surrounding properties.
Okay. Any questions for the opposition? Thank you for being here.
Thank you for your thorough, your pictures.
Your letters. Yes, that's very helpful. John Michael, anybody else in opposition, or we're back to the applicant? The applicant please come forward again. It's your rebuttal time. You get to respond to what you just heard from the opposition.
So, what I have to say, and I want to try to stay on topic about what it is, but as him being a friend, he helped us put up one of the walls. So it's very hard for us to sit here and listen to this. We also asked him in advance, do you care? We asked all the neighbors. I know everybody changes, and the point is, it doesn't matter about them. It matters about what the law is. And so asking him, do you care? And he says no, and then asking him again, and he even helps my husband put up a wall. I mean, my husband's actually upset because of the friendship that was ruined over it, but the truth is that we intended in the beginning, we wanted to do an Airbnb thing, like I think one of the letters had said. But then the law changed on Airbnb that if you weren't the sole owner, you can't do it. So that's out the window. And we said, you know what? We just want to make it right for our family. That is our intention. We are willing to take, like I said, if it takes out the 2nd floor to lower down the square footage, to make it a loft, we'll do anything to make it right and keep the building standing, whatever we have to do to make it right.
Yeah, I'm humbly in front of you guys. I appreciate what you guys do, and I've definitely learned a lesson in this, regardless of what you choose for this issue. I know it's going to make me better.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. We're going to close the public hearing. Discussion. So we have 5 letters of opposition. We heard from one of the people, and here is a structure that is kind of framed and in the process of being built, but obviously not to code. So, board members.
I've asked the architects how hard it is to take off the 2nd floor at this point.
Okay, architects, how hard is it to take off a 2nd floor? I guess it's probably not that hard. It's just
Happens all the time.
all the time?
Contractors have to correct things all the time, so I maybe am being too glib about that, but no, I mean, things get built and contractors fix them to meet code. So I don't know. Maybe Mr. Harper has something different.
It's not that difficult.
So Norm, it sounded like from most of the letters and even the person that came in opposition, they were more concerned about the height than the setback.
The next door neighbor was concerned about the 4-foot side setback. And we could ask, but we haven't asked if it were 1 story. But, I don't see these are the kind of cases that just make me feel very ill because, they're not, they're just not fun cases. But that said, the hardship is hard to prove for any of the variances. I understand that the rear setback, I get it's in line with the other building. I have a tough time with identifying the hardship. I don't have as much problem with it. The height, absolutely. I mean, it's imposing. The pictures are understandable. At what point it became apparent to the neighbors that it was imposing, I don't know.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the pictures, it seems like all the pictures were taken from the neighboring property line, and it really just looks like you're right on top of.
I mean, we didn't, we weren't given an architectural plan, so when the neighbors were asked, "Do you mind?" Well, yeah, maybe sure, but if you had a plan to see and an elevation or something, then they might have known a lot sooner that they had a problem. So I do get that and certainly understand the appellants.
Yeah, I mean, 4 feet's pretty close. I mean, board members look at these pictures. These pictures well document what's there right now.
But it feels like a really big ask, and yet I don't have a problem with them having extra space. But it's 200 feet over what they're allowed, and if
We could still have extra space.
if that were all on the ground, I might have a little bit of different opinion on it. But
Well, the addition is 325 square feet.
that times 2, it's 2 stories.
Well,
It goes by the footprint.
yeah.
So 325. They were allowed
743.
So they can.
Parpanek, I failed to point that out, just exactly what you're going through there when we made the original presentation. The requested height is 20, the restriction is 16. The requested square footage is, or the footprint is 925, 700 being required is the restriction. And then the 20-foot rear setback is being asked for a variance down to 4.5. The caveat I have to give with that is if this was a 700-foot or less accessory structure, they would be eligible to greatly reduce the 20-foot setback to the rear all the way down to 3, assuming no alley loading garages that face right out to it. So you could get there, but this is obviously so far beyond the 700, they don't come anywhere close to triggering the ability to have that lesser rear setback requirement.
The existing garage is more than 700. I mean, they started off 50 square feet in the hole.
Okay. So, anyone have a motion, or what are our thoughts related to the setback and then the height?
I mean,
Well, yeah, and that's the issue. I mean, I think we all come to it hoping that we can make everybody happy, and this is one where clearly somebody's not, and yet, the folks that built it, I mean, certainly, people have said, and I think it's true that they add a lot to the neighborhood and bring in are good folks, and it's not about that. And yet, the letters in opposition outline, clear issues with what they're asking. I think if they had come and asked without having it been built, it would be easy, and maybe that's because I don't see the hardship. I don't think we would have allowed it, and so that's the hard thing.
I'm inclined to deny it.
If you make that a motion, I'll second that.
Okay, make a motion.
I move that we that we deny the application.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So was that 4-2? They were-
I'll
they were
change it.
opposed.
Well, then I'll do 3-3.
3-3.
I
Okay,
want to hear your
Stace.
thoughts on it.
Well, I'm not sure I understand all of the math, and I want to make sure I do. They've exceeded the footprint by 200 square feet approximately. They were trying to build an additional 325. So can they add on at all?
I think they were
Can they salvage anything what
adding
they have?
325 to the footprint, but I think they were adding 700 to the square foot. Is that right?
Procedurally, we voted down a motion.
No, I changed, it's 3-3.
I mean, 3-3. So, John Michael, what happens when it's 3-3?
Well, the board can entertain another motion, of course, but if at the end of all the deliberations, there is no motion that secures 4 affirmative votes, then the matter will stay open for up to 30 days on the board's agenda such that they can take a vote at a later date. But again, the board can entertain another motion if there is one.
I wanted to be clear, John Michael. So 700 square feet is what's allowed total, not just footprint. And the existing garage is 750 square feet. So they're already over 50 square feet before they build anything.
Yeah, all right, so.
And they're adding another.
That's what I want to understand.
Yeah, and maybe that's
another
why
650 square feet, which will put them double the square footage of what's allowed.
Is that right?
Is that right?
Well, I mean, I'm reading the codes thing, and it says allows 700 square foot footprint, requesting 925 square feet with this proposed addition. So they're adding. I guess
225
that
is what
language
I
is
see.
confusing to me.
It
I
is to
mean,
me too. That's why I want to see.
well, they have 1,600 square feet, or do we? I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my math was rough.
Again, we're on a footprint question here, not a total square footage, like, your 3-story house that has, 3,000 square feet. Instead, this is just the footprint question for the accessory structure.
Right.
It's a little different in that regard.
well, well then, when the codes person who entered this into the computer wrote 17.12.050 allows 700 square foot footprint, comma, requesting 925 square foot with this proposed addition, they've determined that with this addition, the footprint is 925?
That's the
I read that.
determination that's been made by the zoning examiner who took the application.
I mean, and I trust it. I mean, I'm not questioning this. I just want to make sure I understand that it's not adding 925 square feet. It's saying it's adding 225 square feet.
Yes.
Of a footprint.
225 beyond the
Footprint,
700
which
was
is-
my understanding
And
of the
so then
application.
they're really adding 500 square feet if you look at 2 stories.
Upstairs, downstairs.
That's not what we're looking at in terms of the footprint, but
Yeah.
yes, I hear what you're
So
saying.
whose drawing was this? Was this the applicant's drawing?
This was, I do not know.
Because these numbers aren't matching what you're saying.
Okay, so does anyone have another motion, or should we move on to the next case?
Okay, I would make a motion that we grant a setback necessary for them to build within the required footprint. Because I'm not sure they can add on at all.
But don't we have to say what the setback is?
Well, right now, they're at 4 feet, I think, and the setback is 20.
Right, so what
They can't,
setback are you suggesting?
I would suggest the 4 grant the setback as requested.
Okay.
But so you would grant a 4.5 foot rear setback, but then we would not grant a height, footprint, or side setback?
I don't have a side setback. I have just one.
It is odd that there isn't a side setback request
got
because the drawing that we're looking at shows a 4-foot side setback, which doesn't seem like that would be code compliant unless it's really a narrow lot. I don't know, John, if you could weigh in on that, why there wasn't a side setback?
Again, obviously, this rendering is not created by a surveyor, and so whenever it was originally reviewed, it was determined that whatever was in existence was in fact in compliance with the side setback. However, this document likely was not reviewed at that initial stage. So all that's before the board properly today is rear setback, height, square footage on the footprint.
So I guess it's worthy to know if they were allowed to build something, they would have to comply with the side setback requirements for this
And all,
particular zoning.
other bulk regulations under the
All right.
zoning code. You're exactly right.
Right, okay.
Okay, so you have a motion for 4 feet?
Yes, I make a motion to grant the 4.5-foot rear setback variance. In the same motion, I'd like to move to deny the height variance and a footprint variance.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And hands up. Opposed?
Go either way.
Okay,
So I'll
well,
be
4-2
opposed.
anyway.
So 4-2.
Okay, John Michael.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the next case for the board's consideration is 2018-414. Property shown here on the zoning map. Ben Kelly's the appellant and owner of the property at 220 Duke Street. The request is for a variance from sidewalk requirements in this an R6A zoning district. The proposed HPR development, shown at the location here on the aerial map and outlined here on the site plan, brings the sidewalk variance request today based upon the conditions of the field you see here. No existing sidewalk, of course, on the project that's now well underway. No existing sidewalks across the street as shown in the upper left-hand corner. The view up and down Duke Street going back to Sultana in the lower right, back towards Dickerson in the upper left. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 414? None. The appellant will have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board. Please introduce yourself by name and address. I think your microphone is live.
Ben Kelly, 220 Duke Street. I originally filed the petition because of my surveyor alerted me to it. There's a missing section of asphalt down the street. You can see it in the pictures vaguely. It's just binder. It's not actually asphalt. And it's about 16 inches wide. It extends 98 foot of the 100-foot lot. So with that missing asphalt, there's going to be a dip where the curb and the driveway entrance, a dip of approximately 10 to 12 inches where you would enter into the driveway. That was the original, and then since then we've surveyed some more to get the height, the curb height from the street where it would be. The lot's so low, there's about an 18-inch drop, maybe a little bit more. I can probably work that with my lot, but the neighboring lot to the right, which would be 218 Duke, is going to catch a lot of the water from the street because it actually slopes to the right toward Dickerson.
Okay. Question?
Councilmember Davis said that there was some development that was going to do all this for you. I'm sorry, yeah, tell me what, so they're actually going to finish in front of this property, or tell me what?
Well, is this thing on? Can you hear me?
I think so.
Yes.
Well, as you can see, Duke and Sultana, they're very weird streets. You got patch here, you got a weird slope there. So where the Piggly Wiggly is off Dickerson, there's a large empty parcel of land like adjacent from it that's, I want to say 1010 Duke. You know, it's about, with all three parcels together, about 3 to 4 acres. They're doing a larger project. And one of the conditions, because of the weirdness, because if Mr. Kelly puts in a sidewalk, the neighbor has a flooding issue, if someone else does it, and to kind of make him do all that stormwater repair and the sidewalks all the way up there when the larger entity is going to, I don't want to say cause an issue, but they're getting more units, more density. And as the trade-off, which we do a lot of times, is, hey, guess what you get to do? You get to do the stormwater improvement. You get to do the sidewalk so that everybody's happy, so we're consistent. And I'm not blaming Public Works or codes or anybody with Metro, but sometimes when some of these builders build these sidewalks with the new ordinance, it looks kind of weird because they're only building like a certain feet, and then it's different from the existing sidewalk. What the neighbors wanted was just to be consistent. And they were fine with the density of 1010 Duke, or I think I have the address correct. If they would just make it consistent, like start over there by the Piggly Wiggly, where I think we have a sidewalk network, sort of, but it's kind of flaky there, and just just do a whole new brand slam, starting at the Piggly Wiggly and go down Duke on both sides. And the developer is more willing to do it because it got the neighbors off their backs. And second, it allowed them to increase their density. And they're going to have to do a bunch of stormwater repair anyway required if they're going to do even 25 units, and they were going to require them sidewalks anyway halfway down Duke. And I'm like, let's give them 20 extra units or I think it was 30 extra units and let them do the sidewalks all the way down so we don't have to deal with this ever again.
Okay.
That was logic.
Questions for the councilman?
Wait, so there was a negotiation involved in them getting the additional density?
Yes.
Why wasn't the sidewalk part of that agreement?
Well, the sidewalk is, we have to go forward now.
So there will be a sidewalk on this property.
Yes, sir,
It will
eventually.
be paid by somebody else. Okay. Okay.
A good example, if you remember the Rochford Group, which is off of, not too far off of Train Lane, is took the old 8 acres of the trailer park and got rid of the old trailers, and they're putting in bus stops, new bus stops for MTA, sidewalks, blocks and blocks of my neighborhood. But they're getting enough.
What's the timing on this? Is it?
The timing on this is now. Please don't hold me to it because sometimes permits or other stuff. The timing on this, I'm hoping if we have a good winter, that they'll be breaking ground in late or early December, but probably we're looking at probably January or February because of the holidays.
Okay. Any other questions for Councilman Davis? Okay. Anything else to add? Okay. We're going to close the public hearing discussion. So this is a situation where, as we know, there's a sidewalk bill that was duly passed by the Metro Council, and I think we've kind of gotten into a standard here that most people pay into the fund absent the councilperson for the district enthusiastically coming here in present, not by letter, saying there's a good reason why the person shouldn't have to build a sidewalk or pay into the fund. And here Councilman Davis says that another developer is going to do the sidewalks in this area. So any other discussion or comments about this?
The only thing that bothers me is that there's no guarantee that the sidewalk will be built.
Going to build a wall and have someone else pay for it. Come on.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of what bothers me about it. I mean,
But the council person says it's going to. It falls on him.
I trust the council person.
If it doesn't happen, so
I trust the council person, but if the finances somehow get upside down and the project can't go through, then no one's got the sidewalk in the sky.
And that's why I said what I said. Normally, even if there wasn't this developer willing to pay for the sidewalk, usually if a council person comes down here and says, "Let the person out," that's what it takes. So
You write it in SP.
Yes, I make the motion that we grant the variance from the sidewalk requirements and also do not require paying into the in lieu fund for this.
And I was just asking if, you could put a 3-year limit on it, provided, and if there's a sidewalk there in 3 years, great, and if not, then they can have trouble. Something they'll have to clear up, but I don't want that too complicated.
It's not too complicated in the sense of failing to understand it. I think everybody sees the potential wisdom in that, but in terms of the logistics, there's going to come a time where a use and occupancy permit is presumably ready to be issued because all of the required construction is done. We kind of can't hang in that limbo with the sidewalk if it has to be built, or in the alternative paid for. Maybe that's the way to structure it, is that any sort of like time-specific conditional grant would be such that there is a hook to be applied for a payment to the sidewalk fund, not actual construction. But even then, frankly, I'm not sure that we're set up to chase that down, if you'll forgive my phrasing.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay. So that's my motion. Is there anybody that wants to second it? Motion's been made and properly seconded. Discussion.
I will point out that the planning department recommended disapproval, that the applicant should build the sidewalks or contribute in lieu.
As they normally do. Yes, okay.
And then I'm okay with what's being proposed, but agree with Mr. Harper's concern about the guarantee, and that's where I'm still on the fence on this one.
And what I would say about this, and we've had council people in the last few months come down here without any guarantee, just saying, let them out. And we're usually amenable to that because the council person in person asked for it for a good reason. So.
We have council people that come and say, please have have the appellant pay or have the
And paying to the
appellant
side,
build
yeah.
the sidewalk.
Then the exact opposite is true. And
Yeah,
most of the time,
both
we
happen.
uphold the sidewalk bill absent the council person coming. There was one in District 1, if you remember. The temporary council person came down here and asked, and had he probably not asked in person, we wouldn't have gotten it. So let's vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, 4-2. Good luck. Yeah, that's, you write the laws, we just sometimes get to hear the variances.
Mr. Chairman, the next case to be presented to the board is 2018-441. This involves the property at 1701 Carvel Avenue in Council District Number 17. This is an item A appeal, and it's actually a traditional item A appeal involving the zoning department's interpretation of the zoning law regarding the permitting of this residential development in the R6A zoning district for completion of the construction of 2 single-family residences and HPR development. Aerial map here shows the subject property just below Southgate. From my recent site visit, the appearance of the property has been stop worked midstream, covered now for the weather concerns. The view up and down the street on the 2 left-hand slides, and a better view into the interior of the property in the lower right-hand corner. This was a case wherein a building permit was issued for the construction of the 2 units, as you have identified through your case packet and the explanations capably presented by counsel for the appellant. The permit was later revoked as it was determined that it had been issued in error, the error having been based upon a change in the zoning district applicable to this lot. The timeline is noteworthy, so we'll outline it as having been an R6 zone lot would have allowed precisely the construction that you see here. However, on April the 13th, 2017, the Planning Commission took up public hearing on Council Bill 2017-668, which represented a change in the zoning district for this and other nearby properties from R6 to R6A. As most of you know, the A is for alternative, and the alternative zoning districts under the Metro Zoning Code include a number of either design criteria or performance criteria that are slightly different. Among other features, those A districts do not allow front-loading garages, for example, whereas a regular R6 district would have done so. That's only one example, but one that may help kind of illustrate some of the key differences. So the site plan that was approved on the properly issued, or well, what we thought was the properly issued building permit, included some provisions that were not going to be allowed under R6A, and were frankly, in the estimation of the appellant and counsel for the appellant and others who have been involved with the project, were not necessarily great items for potential variances. So instead, item A seemed like the more appropriate action to come forward to the board. The zoning staff then, based upon the pending legislation doctrine that had attached on April 13th, recognized that despite the fact the building permit actually issued on May the 2nd, before second reading and public hearing at Metro Council, it should not have because of pending legislation doctrine having attached on April the 13th. We caught the error only at a much later date, revoked the permit accordingly. Appropriately, the builder stopped the construction process so that we could resolve this at the BZA.
A much later date, so a lot got built. So how
A lot got built, Mr. Chairman.
How long was the much later date?
I'll allow the appellants to speak to that topic.
Oh, okay.
You have in your packet, though, the fact that this is a storyline that our board has heard before, albeit in different contexts, where the zoning department or the zoning division of the codes department, if they determine a permit has been issued in error, will stop the permit. And we've always leaned on state law as our basis for doing so. In an attempt to correct the error, we understand that this leaves an untenable situation for the property owner and builder in this location. Nevertheless, That's a good overview of where the Codes Department landed on this particular matter. So with that, we'll defer over then to the appellant, represented by Mr. Lefevre. We'll encourage them to introduce themselves by name and address. Before we begin, we'll ask, is there anyone here in opposition to the appeal filed by the parties for 1702 Carvel, case number 441? No one in attendance, so there'll be 5 minutes allowed for the appellants.
Are you here for this case in support or opposition?
Okay.
For this current case?
10 minutes.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members of the board. Adam Lefevre, 1702 Sweetbriar, here on behalf of the owner, appellant. The facts aren't disputed that Mr. Michael just stated. I'm going to add a few. My client purchased the property in 2013 and used it as an investment property from then until 2017, which, as many of the owners in Wedgwood, Houston at that time started developing. So he obtained a permit on May 2nd, 2017, started construction, and in May of 2018, the stop work order was issued. That's the condition of the properties.
Tell me again, the construction started when, and when was the stop work order?
The permit was pulled May 2nd, 2017.
Okay.
Stop work order, I've been unable to locate a copy of the actual stop work order, but it was in May of 2018.
About a year later.
About a year later.
So that's why you've almost, what's that, 70% finished?
So at the current state, you have two houses that are completely framed. You have one of them roofed, and the money in, so to speak, at approximately $200,000.
And were there inspections in that year-long period?
A foundation inspection passed. The stop work order was issued prior to the framing inspection.
And were the inspections of such that would have noted the distinction between the R and the R6 or the RA6?
I believe so.
I think it has to do with driveways and garages,
the
right?
front entry garage, you wouldn't have a foundation, a block wall sitting on the front entry. That answer the questions?
And we have his brief in the packet. So, Counselor, continue.
And so there are three main issues we contend of why the zoning administrator erred in issuing the stop work order. And as Mr. Michael said, this board's heard most of them before. The first one is equitable estoppel. I believe all of the board members were on the board at the time the Speedy Cash case was heard in 2015. In Speedy Cash, the facts were very similar to this one. You had a cash checking business apply for a permit to build a location on Dickerson Road. The permit was issued. Speedy Cash built the store, spent $500,000 to $600,000 in construction. Stop work order was placed on the project.
Because the Codes Department said the permit was issued in error.
The Codes Department said the permit was issued in error. This was an issue more about usage. This was when restrictions were going through the legislative process about check cashing businesses, right, and had to be 1,400 feet apart or something like that.
But when the permit technically was issued, that type of permit shouldn't have been issued. It was issued anyway, and they didn't find out it was in error until much later.
Correct. It was technically pending at that point. It was issued in error, and $600,000 in, stop work order was placed. So Speedy Cash appeals to this body. This body denies the appeal. Speedy Cash raised equitable estoppel. Speedy Cash then appeals to Chancery. Chancery Court overturns this board, holding equitable estoppel was a bar to the revocation of the permit and the issuance of the stop work order. So I know you're all familiar with equitable estoppel, but just a rundown. It's a defensive doctrine which basically prevents injustice. It's a fairness doctrine. And in the Speedy Cash case specifically, the chancellor looked at a couple aspects, and I'll note those. One, that the owner lacked the truth that the permit was issued in error. Two, that the client, my client in this case, relied on the permit. Three, that the client was prejudiced by the issuance of the permit. And four, that a public body took affirmative action that induced a private party to act to his or her detriment. So in this case, as in Speedy Cash, all of these elements have been met. Client had no reason to think that the permit was issued in error. A year into construction, obviously. Two, Codes issued the permit. Three, client relied on the permit. And four, client is obviously prejudiced to the fact that he's $200,000 into a project, has a stop work order in place, and might not be able to finish the project. So the facts, and although we're dealing with
So,
usage
Counselor, what is the city asking you to do or your client to do?
the city is asking us, as far as we can tell, to bring these structures in compliance with R6A.
Which means what?
Which means a complete architectural rework. No front-facing garage. You can't have two driveways. You can't park in the setback between the street and the structure. It would probably require the demolition of both structures.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, let me ask you this. The Speedy Cash case is different in that you're talking about a business structure as opposed to structures in a residential area. So also looking at how this affects the surrounding properties who aren't going to have this type of zoning or these type of regulations, how can we weigh that?
Many of the properties are, many of the properties around the structure are already built with front-facing garages in R6A. It's not like this property is an outlier. It's common throughout Wedgwood, Houston. It's probably why the neighborhood and councilperson moved for the revision to R6A at some point. But nevertheless, they're all over the place in Wedgwood, Houston. As to the difference between a commercial and a residential, the Speedy Cash was the usage, not the actual structure at issue. It was the fact that it was a check cashing place. There's nothing wrong, nothing wrong with the building itself.
I thought from the Speedy Cash case, I remember us being concerned about the investment and the timing, but we're advised by our legal counsel that we had to leave kind of that equitable estoppel issue to the courts, and that wasn't something that we had any that wasn't a criteria for any of our decision making.
Well, but it was debated. I mean, we as a body, we ultimately decided not to make that an issue, but it's obviously been pointed out that we were in error.
And obviously it was pointed out by the lawyer here today that that very case, equitable estoppel, was the reason that they overturned this board.
If I could just point out quickly about the Speedy Cash case, that was a trial level decision that was did not set precedent for this board. That was a very specific set of facts related to that case, and that does not bind y'all on other facts, other cases with different facts. There are Court of Appeals cases that set forth criteria for determining if equitable estoppel applies against the government. And
Did Metro appeal the Speedy Cash case?
we did not appeal the Speedy Cash case, in part because it is not binding on this board, because that was for one very specific case.
Okay.
But we do have the ability to consider equitable estoppel, what you're saying, based on certain Court of Appeals cases. We can make that a basis for a ruling without looking at precedent.
I don't see a reason why you can't analyze equitable estoppel. If you do that, I think that you would then need to look at the criteria set forth by the Court of Appeals, which I can give you, and determine that they do in fact meet all three criteria.
Could we have those, please?
Yes, that the party, his or her lack of knowledge and the means of knowledge of the truth as to the facts in question, basically they didn't have knowledge or way to know. So in the case also, it's Mendenhall, Inc., v. City of Memphis. The case also stated that a party that does business with the government is presumed to know the local law. So they have to overcome that presumption and show that they didn't know or have any way to know the local law, including public hearings and whatnot of the zoning change.
But it sounded like we didn't know the local law, that we issued the permit. So how can you hold the client against knowing the local law when the city?
Hang on a second. Before you guys go any further, I just want to be clear is that the zoning administrator, such that it's Mr. Michael at the moment, I want to make sure that we know who's speaking for Metro and who's speaking as our attorney. You're in this particular role, you're speaking as our counsel.
Yes, I'm giving you the
So I
legal
just
basis.
want to point that out for the committee as our questions go, that she's not necessarily taking the position of Metro Legal. She is our legal advisor.
Right, I'm giving you all the criteria to analyze.
Mr. Chairman, just to join the comments and the question raised by Mr. Harper is an important one. Ms. Lamb speaks, of course, as your representative. I do recall the comments that were made in the Speedy Cash case by Metro Legal's representative, because I was the representative. And yes, I advise that equitable estoppel under the item A analysis of was there an error made by the zoning staff in revoking a permit, didn't rise to that level. The court, of course, is the appropriate place, and that's where the Chancery Court saw fit to overturn the decision of this board, which was to uphold the action that was taken by the then zoning administrator. Today, I guess as the current zoning administrator, we contend, as you already know, and as Mr. Lefevre has acknowledged in his brief and in his comments, the zoning staff maintains that the correct decision was made in stopping the permit in this case. To the chairman's question of how is responsibility imputed to the property owner and or developer with regard to legal criteria, when a zoning change is brought about, public notices are sent out in writing, signage goes up. So there are notice requirements in place, and those notice requirements, we have no indication that were not met. So anybody who owned property anywhere near there received those notices with regard to upcoming hearings.
I understand that, but what I said was
But it wasn't in the record, so I just want to make sure it was at least in the record.
No, I think it was.
In the event this makes its way to Chancery Court.
We're holding them, the applicant, to know the law, but apparently we didn't know the law because we issued a permit.
The permit was in fact issued.
In error.
In error.
So we did not know the law, but we're saying they should know the law. It's his responsibility to know the law, not the codes department.
I think that's what a small pile of cases from the Tennessee Court of Appeals says.
Yes.
But I'm not able to cite to them at this point.
Ms. Lamb. Anything else to add? You're going down the equitable stop.
Well, only with respect to a permit issued in error, there is plenty of case law that says that the government can, in fact, revoke permits that were issued in error. The other factors were that the reliance upon the conduct of the party who is stopped and action by the invoking party based thereon of such a character as to change the party's position prejudicially. So I think you got to first start with the first one. Did they have knowledge and or were they unable to obtain that knowledge in light of the fact that there is a presumption that someone doing business with a local government is presumed to know the law?
Okay. Counselor.
Well, I'm sorry, and again,
I was going to say, we've got 5 pages of short-term rentals which are coming up, and they're
not to parse words, but so are the items you listed, are they separated by a comma or ands? I mean, is this all or
semicolon, and. So it's all three. You've got to meet all three.
Is what is in the attorney's letter? Is this what you just read?
No, what is in the attorney's letter is from the state trial court in the Speedy Cash case. What I read from is a Court of Appeals decision, Mendenhall versus City of Memphis.
Sounded very similar. So I was wondering if I could rely on what he wrote.
It may be that. Okay, yes, I'm sorry. Looking at it now, he
on
did
page
in fact.
2.
It looks like this state court did in fact quote the Court of Appeals. They just found that in that specific set of facts, they met those 3 criteria.
And we're supposed to look at those 3 criteria.
To the extent you are considering equitable estoppel on an item A appeal, which, as Mr. Michael pointed out, I don't see that you can't analyze it, but the question is, did the zoning administrator err?
Okay. Other questions before we go back to the applicant? Okay. Counselor.
Okay, so equitable estoppel, we would allege that all of those factors have been met in the present case, just like in Speedy Cash. Next argument is vested rights. As many of you are aware, in 2015, the Tennessee legislature passed a statute that's commonly known as the Vested Rights Act. And the vested rights doctrine addresses situations where a landowner has begun to develop land, but zoning rules changed, and that blocks the project's completion and operation as intended. So here, once the passage of vested rights in 2015, it states what a property owner does that allows the property owner to become vested in the permit itself. And the Vested Rights Act only refers to the issuance of a permit is what allows an owner to become vested. An old analysis used to say you had to do this work within this amount of time, but the black letter of the statute simply says upon issuance of a permit. Now, there's very little case law on this since it was just passed in 2015. However, about 2 weeks ago, another matter was appealed to Davidson County Chancery, and Chancellor Perkins held that the Vested Rights Act protected a bar in East Nashville that was developing. And in this case, a bar in East Nashville obtained a permit to do construction, started the construction, just like in this case, stop work order was placed. The allegation was that the permit was issued in error. The bar takes the case to Chancery Court, and Chancellor Perkins analyzes the Vested Rights Act and says just what I repeated, that the permit in that case vested upon its issuance. Now, these are factually specific matters. You can't take it and blanket Chancellor Perkins' opinion.
I mean, immediately? So this is a situation where a year later, Metro finds, oops, we shouldn't have given you this permit. We're sorry you built 2 frames houses, and oh, by the way, here are your new rules.
Correct. And
so you're saying under vested right, immediately, when you get the permit.
That's the way the act reads, yes. It only refers to the issuance of a permit. It doesn't refer to the issuance of a valid permit or the issuance of a permit so long as nothing is pending that might change the permit. It just refers to the issuance of a permit. And back to Speedy Cash, because it applies here too. Speedy Cash, I believe, was Ms. Lamb's first case sitting. And another attorney with Metro Legal was brought to speak because Ms. Lamb hadn't advised the board or Bill Herbert at that case, hadn't given him any advice. And so the other attorney that came up from Metro took the podium and said, I'm the attorney that gave Mr. Herbert the advice, and actually addressed vested rights. And the attorney with Metro Legal said vested rights does not apply to Speedy Cash, because the permit issued in Speedy Cash was issued in 2014, prior to the enactment of the Vested Rights Act. And the Metro attorney actually said the result in this might be different if this permit was pulled in 2015. So the implication, again, that vested rights would have attached to Speedy Cash had the permit been issued.
So you're saying a Metro attorney said in court,
not in court, before this board.
In front of this board, basically, that vested rights possibly would apply to a similar case in the future had it been passed by the legislature at the time. And when did it pass the legislature?
It was enacted in 2015. I'm not sure the specific date.
So it clearly affects potentially your argument that it applies here too.
We're much later than.
And yes. So your point also is that any issuance of a building permit, if any mistakenly issued building permit by its issuance is valid.
My position is that's the way the act reads today.
Okay.
And I believe there was a similar issue with an STRP ordinance that was amended at some point in the future to clarify, but as of today, that's the way the Vested Rights Act reads. The last argument is number 3 on the letter I submitted, and that's the zoning administrator is acting arbitrarily in the enforcement of the pending legislation doctrine. Now, I've known Mr. Michael for years. I respect him as both a zoning administrator and in his prior life at Metro Legal. But included with your letter are 8 different permits that were issued in this Wedgwood, Houston area while the legislation was pending. Some were issued before my clients, some were issued much later than my clients. And to our knowledge, none of those permits were interfered with. No stop work orders were issued and no questions were asked with those permits. To our knowledge, all those structures have been completed, sold, new owners, new occupants, and those builders were allowed to complete. So our argument under this, number 3 in your letter, is that the zoning administrator acted arbitrarily and inconsistently and therefore illegally by only issuing a stop work order on my client.
So you have 3 bites of the apple here. You're saying that they also acted arbitrarily because these 8 other cases, these houses all got built?
Yes.
And they're similar garage situations?
There are variations. You have garage issues, you have the number of driveways.
But all these permits today, you couldn't build a house like that?
Correct. All those permits that I included would be in violation of R6A.
And not one of them was issued a stop work permit?
To our knowledge, not a single one. And we didn't, there's no way that I know of, and nor did we, sift through every permit that was issued during this time period. That was a cursory overview of let's see if we can find some permits that were issued while this was pending that were allowed to proceed. That's just 8 that we found. We're quite confident there are more out there.
So what do you make of Metro's argument that, okay, they made a mistake, and obviously according to you, they made a mistake with these other 8, and they have a right to basically take it away, take your permit away?
That's Metro's position, but one of the fundamental issues that we have is fairness. Kind of get into a constitutional issue of enforcing a law against one person when not enforcing it against a similarly situated other person that has the same
8 other
criteria.
people in the same neighborhood, same council
same
district?
neighborhood, same council district, one or two streets over. And so it raises a bit of a constitutional question of why enforce against this person and not enforce against this person.
Okay.
I mean, because you're looking at the permits, and why not stop the one on Moore Avenue over here? Why stop Carvel?
Questions for the applicant before we hear
And so
from the
you're
applicant?
saying, you know, again, codes is supposed to be consistent, but maybe somebody complained about this one, maybe somebody, you know, somehow it became on the radar screen, and because it became on the radar screen and others didn't, that's arbitrary.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Not whether
some were a street
regardless of-
over.
Street over, Moore. I'll ask Mr. Kelton. I think Moore is pretty close to Carvel.
So yeah, regardless of intent or process or how it came about, it was arbitrary, the fact that some were caught, some weren't.
So, Mr. Lefevre, you would contend that if Metro a year later figured out they made a mistake and issued this permit in error, they should have done a little bit more due diligence and said, okay, what other permits might we have given this is one of the rapidly growing areas in Nashville and has lots of buildings, that you don't think anybody went back and looked these other houses, they just concentrated on this one?
I believe so, but it poses the question, what is the remedy? Do you go back to these 8 that have completed, sold, and have occupants and say, I'm sorry, your permit was issued in error, you need to rearrange these garages towards the rear? Or is my client being penalized just because he didn't finish before these other people finished?
And so, from your perspective, if there were 8 that were stopped and 1 that was allowed to finish, is that arbitrary too?
If pending legislation was the reason for the stop on that one, yes.
So your argument is if there's any one example of something getting through, so to speak, then the whole lot's arbitrary.
Yes.
I mean, I think I'm kind of following you with, you know, if it's 8 that got through and 1 that didn't, that seems arbitrary. But at what point does it start to be arbitrary in your opinion? Which I asked, and that's what you answered. One in itself, in your opinion, would be arbitrary.
Correct.
Okay.
If you're applying it to others and not applying it to one.
Well, particularly since it's relatively in the same 3 or 4 block area as you discussed, that basically you would think that someone said, oh my, we made a colossal mistake, that we issued this permit a year ago and they've put up the frames of 2 houses. We better look to see what other mistakes might be in this neighborhood. And obviously they didn't do that, or other stop work orders would have been issued.
Right, and another issue, though somewhat off topic, is my client worked with the tenants that were in the houses that were torn down to help them find new residences. And so he didn't just immediately bulldoze these things and throw them up as quickly as possible. So yes, it was a year after the permit, but that shouldn't matter.
Okay, any questions for the applicant before we hear from the opposition? Okay, you'll have 2 minutes, 42 seconds for rebuttal. Let's hear from the opposition. Please come forward, state your name, address, and why you're opposed to this request. Oh, please come forward, right here. Please state your name, address, and why you're in opposition to this request.
Hi, Susan Heffernan.
Mike, hold the mic. Yep. Closer.
Hi, Susan Heffernan, 1710 Neal Terrace. And actually, I used to live at 1702 Carvel. And I did try to buy that building a long time ago, and they said, oh, the owner will never sell it. So here is my problem. With all of the construction that has been going on. I have next door 2 tall and skinnies on one property. On the other side, I have 2 condos. And I've actually worked quite well with the builders and developers. When I saw that the property immediately in back of me, which is 1702 Carvel, was being built, I stopped over there about 3 or 4 times to try to find out who it was that owned the property and was doing this building. And they all feigned, first of all, they didn't speak English. And second of all, they didn't know who their bosses were. There is a line of trees in back of his property, and I needed to speak to him about either trimming or removing them, because if they fell, they're going to fall on my house. I don't know who reported his garage being too big. I was originally told that it was a detached duplex. I don't know how that works. But
So why are you in opposition to this request?
I'm just in opposition because if there was a complaint about it, about his building, I basically will agree that these buildings are not proper.
Okay. Any questions for the opposition? Okay, thank you. Let's hear from the applicant. This is rebuttal time. You get to respond to the opposition.
Response to the opposition, I'll rest with the arguments I've made. I don't respectfully believe any of the opposition's comments are relevant to an item A appeal. We're here on whether or not the zoning administrator erred.
Okay, very good. Any other questions of the applicant?
I may have missed this, but your other appellant, did you introduce yourself for the record?
Yeah, please introduce yourself for the record, your address.
Blake Kelton, 310 Oakville Drive.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question for the new zoning administrator.
Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing, and you could ask the zoning administrator a question.
I guess that, to me, the argument that is being made that stands right now strongest is the arbitrariness potentially of having different treatment for different properties. And do you have any information that is different than what's presented? I mean, to your knowledge, are the properties that they presented the permits on ones that, may also have, had someone turned them in, or had someone noticed, or had, potential cases that could have been stopped too?
Although I've not reviewed those individual items that were presented in council's brief or letter, I do not doubt the factual accuracy of his assertions with regard to the dates of issuance, and particularly vis-a-vis the pending legislation status for that council bill. That said, it's entirely possible that with the submission of those identified properties, Mr. Lefevre has single-handedly created 8 property standards enforcement cases for the Metro Codes departments, but we'll make it a point not to mention to the property owners who mentioned that to us, lest we be on public record having done so. No, your question is well taken. It does raise the question of arbitrariness. However, because this was the first out of that batch brought to us, and you have to forgive me, Mr. Lefevre may remember better than I, or Mr. Cuthbertson, or the property owner may remember better than I, how it originally was brought to my attention and subsequently Mr. Herbert's attention. This is the first one we've dug into, and it was in May of 2018, as noted in the brief, that the permit was stopped, and only now in, early September that the BZA case comes to you. So, in all likelihood, the handling of this case will be determinative to how best we respond to the other cases that have been identified and what we have to do with those. One other clarification that I think may go hand in hand with that question, you were asked about arbitrariness. There was some discussion of the recently issued decision from Chancery Court, and I believe the styling of the case on that was Miss Shapes versus Metropolitan Government, which arose out of the Historic Zoning Commission and did in fact involve pending legislation doctrine, or rather the Vested Rights Act of 2015. It's important to note that that is still within its appellate window, whereby Metro may appeal that case. So any weight given to that decision should probably be mitigated at least to some considerable extent, given that Metro may appeal that on up to the Court of Appeals.
Under that same line of logic, can we give weight to the Speedy Cash case because Metro did not appeal that case?
Whatever weight the board sees fit to give a trial court decision, not a decision from precedent-setting court like the Court of Appeals or the Tennessee Supreme Court.
But you're telling us not to put much weight in this other case because Metro could still appeal, but they didn't appeal the Speedy Cash case.
You saw how the zoning staff handled this case when it came forward 2.5 years after the Speedy Cash decision came down. We believe this was appropriate to issue the stop work on this previously issued permit, and there are many similarities, as correctly stated by Mr. Lefevre, with regard to the Speedy Cash scenario, and now this scenario involving 1702 Carvel. Given the fact that that was not a decision from a court of record, i.e. Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court, we went ahead and stop worked on this permit again, and we believe that was the right decision.
Okay.
So if we found that you did not err, I won't ask you what you propose the remedy would be, but what would be your recommendation for a process for remedy?
Well, there are multiple potential remedies in play, so I'm kind of glad you asked. None of them are pretty. I don't pretend that these remedies are ideal or even tolerable for this particular property owner, but in these scenarios, the question of rezoning the property is not out of the question. Even though, yes, it was recently rezoned, it doesn't mean the council can't go back, re-examine, and see if the property needs to be rezoned in a way that would allow precisely that construction. Another option is for the appellant, and although we've addressed this as not being an ideal scenario, they could pursue variances from the R6A design guidelines or construction guidelines such that that which is being built could be permitted potentially. And additionally, there is the notion of just changing the construction in the field to match the R6A standards. Again, I'm acknowledging that none of those are ideal options, but I'm pointing out 3 distinct options that could bring the project into compliance rather than merely having to rely on an item A appeal. With that, though, there's the question of the pending legislation doctrine. There is the question of whether or not they can vest in what we contend is an improperly issued permit, an errantly issued permit, to say yes, they can. And counsel from Metro Legal may have other information with regard to the question of vesting in an improperly issued permit. But to say yes, you can is to say, well, if it was issued in error, maybe. What about if it was issued via fraud? God forbid there was some government agency where whatever there was some sort of inappropriateness underway, somebody got a permit they weren't supposed to get. Are they vested in that? Because there's no distinguishing in the language of the Vested Rights Act that I'm aware of there. And again, Metro Legal may have more information than I do about that. That's where at the departmental level, we're slow to embrace this idea of an error, an honest, obviously, I think no one contends anything else, an honest error made by a zoning examiner in issuing this permit creates a vested right in complete dereliction of the requirements under that new zoning district. That's where we have pause. And absent any direction from a court or our advisors at the Metro Legal Department otherwise, the next case like this that comes forward, granted all of these are very fact-determinative issues for us, or fact-specific determinations for us to make, rather, the next time this comes up, we'd probably handle it the same way unless we've got legal guidance otherwise.
Well, the bonus I get by sitting next to our lawyer is that I get to ask questions, and one of the questions was about that vested right, and was told that there was some case law that suggested that permits issued in error weren't vested, and that may be something that would need greater discussion and debate were we to go that route, which is why, to me, the pathway, if there was to be a remedy today in finding error in the zoning administrators, I'd say just in the zoning staff, I mean, that's kind of where it came down.
And I'll just elaborate on that for everyone else's benefit. The Vested Rights Act itself does not, in fact, say you vest only in a valid permit. I would argue that it presumes that you vest only in valid permits, only in space valid permits. Also, even beyond that, though, I would go farther than saying that there's case law that suggested there are multiple cases that say very clearly a permit issued in error is void and that you cannot vest in a permit that is invalid.
But for purposes, if we are to decide today the zoning administrator erred, do we have to give a basis for the error?
I think you need to at least say how he erred. I mean, what was the error?
And if we find, let's just say, if we find, and I'll ask the applicant, if we find that based on equitable estoppel, the error, I mean, how is an error based on equitable estoppel if we're going to do that?
Well, I think that's where it's confusing whether or not, I mean, I think you can walk through the analysis of equitable estoppel, but I don't know how clearly that pertains to an item A appeal, which is, right. I mean, because the zoning administrator does not consider equitable estoppel. That's not his job. His job is to enforce the zoning code.
And let me ask the hardest question. If we find the zoning administrator erred, is Metro going to appeal on this case?
I cannot answer that. I would most likely have to speak to the litigators in the management office. I don't,
And it would be on the basis of what? I mean,
well, because they've got these other.
I think we could overturn the zoning administrator and say they erred because of equitable estoppel, that they shouldn't have revoked this permit based on that.
In other words, if they had found it 6 months earlier, maybe.
Right, or based on vested rights. They erred revoking the permit because of vested rights.
well, I don't believe that necessarily true. I haven't been convinced of that. I mean, I think I've been told, but I've also, I mean, our attorney very specifically says there's case law that says otherwise. Their attorney says.
Well, that's why I asked if they were going to appeal this case that the counselor just
right, but I think to me, well, and I'll just say, I think that to me the easiest path is did the zoning administrator err because there was it was arbitrary, and to me I think that and I think that we can word it in such a way that says in this specific neighborhood at this specific time based on this specific zoning change from R6 to R6A, there was evidence of arbitrary application, which makes this an error in this case. And that, I think, may help fix this case, and that's what I see.
Yeah, the public hearing is closed.
Is it closed?
Yep, public hearing is closed.
I don't think we.
So, and I might be saying what Mr. Ewan was saying, but in a more pedestrian way, but it seems like that if there's an error, in my view, it may have been in the analysis of when the revocation or the stop order was issued, because I think if you're talking about the arbitrary issue, and I take some solace in the fact that they didn't suggest that it was capricious. It was only arbitrary. So I think it's saying it's a human thing, a human mistake, but I think that had the alleged error been discovered a week after the issue, it's very different, a week versus, well, it's not even so much a calendar issue as a progress issue.
Yeah, and I agree. Metro makes errors, and they have a reasonable amount of time to fix the errors. A year after a permit has been issued and construction is heavily underway is not a reasonable time to fix the error.
Well, and also,
and that's why I think
is.
After a year, there's got to be some period of time where you think, oh, Metro's not going to claw back my permit, and to me, that's probably over a month, maybe two at tops. That after that, it's the speak now or forever hold your peace. A year should not go by and then Metro sends you a letter saying,
and I would
we messed up.
Just for consideration or discussion, if this is reviewed by another court, I don't know that saying a date certain or a time certain argument is necessarily the best criteria for the analysis. I think that it depends on the progress of the project and what permit is being revoked. If a plumbing permit were issued in error because the wrong kind of ventilation was used, and it's something that can be remedied easily, okay, it doesn't matter that it's a year later. But if it's the garages can't face the street and you can't have your driveways on the street and there's no alley and there's no other choice, and that's discovered after the garage and the driveways are built, then it's a really big issue for the analysis.
Well, and I think it's important to note that we're not being overrun with these. I mean, I think, Speedy Cash and this one are the two I remember, and I don't remember any others, and I've been on the board 7 years, and so.
But what I will point out related to this case, and I won't make too much reference to this other case, but you know what I'm talking about, board members. We had a case where houses were too close to each other and 80-some permits were issued in error. I think what happened, one thing flagged it, and then someone in Metro did research and found all these others. What they should have done in this case is said, if we messed up on this one, maybe this is a booming residential neighborhood and this just passed, but they didn't do that. This was the only one that got clawed back.
Well, I'll make a motion and see where it goes. That in this case, I will move that the zoning administrator did err based on issuing, but based on the fact that in this neighborhood, and adjacent several blocks during this specific time period between 2017 and 2018, when the zoning change of this neighborhood went from R6 to R6A, that there was arbitrary stoppage on this particular property, and that in this particular case, because of that, the zoning administrator erred.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? I will second the motion. Discussion.
I think it is a stronger position if we add that. I frankly think we should put all 3 points in there, that there could have been an analysis on the equitable estoppel. We are unsure of the application of the Vested Rights Act, and there's a potential for the arbitrary revocation of the permit at the late date.
Well,
because
I think that in the last case we said we think that there is a strong case on appeal for equitable estoppel, but we weren't authorized to do that. I think that's how we said it. So I'm perfectly fine. I don't know if I had the. I'm fine mentioning that we do think that there's serious financial cost and an equitable estoppel issue.
What I think she's saying is, given, and I'm sure when this was discovered, a lot of research was done to say, oh, how much is built? What have they done?
Right.
And when the permit was revoked, those same things happened. So what we're saying is they didn't consider equitable estoppel and vested rights when they revoked the permit. The zoning administrator didn't.
I think that
they should have, given how far along this was in recent case law.
I think the elements of equitable estoppel have been established.
Yeah, I don't want to get too caught up in just the y'all are the lawyers and I'm not, but I'm sitting in between all the lawyers, which is, but
I think it has the same I think it has the same effect.
Well, and what I was just asking was that, and again, just from what I remember before was that we can say and say to the, any future court, yeah, we think equitable estoppel is an issue here, but we don't. It's not really our purview, and it's not necessarily the right of the codes department to take that into account.
But I agree with Cindy, and for that reason, if you're not willing to kind of,
I think it
but
is.
I will tell you, I'm willing to talk about equitable estoppel, but the vested rights, I do not want to set a precedent on vested rights, because I think that we're here in.
But this is a very narrow ruling by your talking about neighborhoods and things like this.
I'm just saying that I think that.
Precedent with who? Or
well, I don't want us as a body to say that the Tennessee law gave them vested rights with the issuance of that permit, because I don't think it's been proven, and I think that is dangerous to us.
So are you more comfortable with equitable estoppel in his motion?
Yes.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay, so your new motion is what you said, and then adding the equitable estoppel. That they erred because they did not consider equitable estoppel when revoking this permit? It's your motion.
Well, I know it's my motion, and I'm just not sure where the error was. I'm not sure where we're requiring the zoning administrator to consider that when, on all cases, because we all know when the line is crossed, but at what point do you get to the line? And
I don't think it all has to be said in the motion. I think that's why I felt it was important to talk about the analysis that should have been taken, because I think that alludes to equitable estoppel and a few other things. But it goes to the arbitrariness, the arbitrary argument. You know, if we're saying that we don't think there was enough analysis done, David Ewing said that, you know, perhaps they could have flagged these others, and I was saying, you know, I think it depends on where the project is will determine how arbitrary the decision is. I mean, if you're just looking at the calendar right here, or not even a calendar, but you're looking at the order and go, oh, this, by the letter of the law, this permit shouldn't have been issued, stop work.
Then what, if I were to add to my motion what I said, did you remember it? That, you know, were this case to be appealed, we would believe that the property owner would have a strong equitable estoppel case that should be considered.
That's not a motion, that's an opinion. So
well, that's all that goes to the court. I don't know how.
No, but you could. What the court will be looking at is how we ruled and why we ruled, not some boilerplate. Well, if it goes here, then they should.
Right, and I guess, and again, the horse may be dead, but I haven't gotten an answer, which is, if we say that the codes department has a responsibility to take equitable estoppel into account, at what point do they do that, and at what point does it become inequitable?
You're ruling on one case. So what I said, what I want to be added to the motion is the zoning administrator erred because in this case, which they issued a permit a year before, and then a year later they realized it was an error, they did not consider equitable estoppel when they decided to revoke the permit. Is that acceptable to you?
Acceptable to everybody else.
It's acceptable to me, and I understand what you're saying. We're not setting this would not set any kind of bright line obligation on the zoning administrator or the codes department, but taken as a whole in this case, the passage of time, the amount of money expended by the applicant, the numerous times that Metro was involved in that property, I think in a situation that meets similar criteria, there would be an obligation to look at the doctrine of equitable estoppel.
I agree.
Okay, so that's the motion. I second it. More discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Horse is dead.
6 votes in favor, none against. Break, John Michael.
Thank you for your time, members.
We'll reconvene with the next case after a short break for the board. Members of the board will reconvene with case 2018-454. This is a case that was presented to the board, I believe, at our last BZA meeting. It involves a property at 921 13th Avenue South, an HPR development shown here on the zoning map, in another R6A zoning district. Good news, it's not an item A case, but instead variance request from the requirements for garage orientation and the requirements involving the driveway size. The aerial here shows you that this is a area here just below South Street that is, as you probably know, been under heavy development in recent months and last couple of years. Site plan submitted shows the proposed residences and how they fit into this somewhat pie-shaped lot relative to the frontage and the proposed sidewalk, or not sidewalk, but driveway entrances from 13th Avenue South. From my recent site visit, the lot in its current condition, the lower right-hand corner view across the street in the upper left, the view up and down 13th at this location. Again, the request is for variances from garage orientation restrictions and from the width of the driveway or driveway size requirements, particularly within the setback area. Is the appellant present for case number in light of the fact the appellant is not present, the board has the option
Let's
of
just
denying this or deferring
defer
this.
it one meeting.
Very well. We'll defer that until the September 20th meeting and reach out to the appellant once again in order to secure his or her presence.
You want to do it?
I mean, there's no hardship. But that's fine. It's fine to defer. But
Mr. Chairman, the next case to be presented may be best presented as two cases together. It's cases 2018-469 and 470 involving the properties at 1215 and 1217 14th Avenue South, although both would require their own individual vote from the board with regard to the variances requested. Because they're adjoining and are essentially identical requests, we can hear them together. The zoning map here shows you, again, an R6A zone property on 14th South. David Salimi is the appellant on behalf of Best Built Construction Incorporated, the owner of the subject property. The variance requests from the board are variance requests for sidewalk requirements, rear setback requirements, and side setback requirements. The aerial here of the neighborhood.
Yeah, John Michael's the applicant here. If he is, he should
Mr.
come
Salimi
forward.
was present earlier. Come forward at this time and have a seat at the front table here. And it's my understanding there is opposition present for cases 469 or 470. Is that correct? No, seeing no opposition, the appellant will have 5 minutes in just a moment. The site plan submitted show you the proposed layout for the structures and the detached garage to the rear, which is part of the request for the rear setback, of course. This for the second unit, or units. Face of the property for case number 469, for case 470. We'll leave the site plans up, or the aerial rather. So with no opposition present, Mr. Salimi will have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board with regard to each of the three variances requested, the sidewalk variance, the rear setback variance, and the side setback variance. To be clear, that's a rear setback requirement of 20. The request is for a 0-foot rear setback. Side setback requirement in this instance for the detached structure to the rear is 3 foot. The request is for 0. And then, of course, you have the details with regard to the sidewalk variance requested and the planning department's recommendation to you based upon that request.
now is the side that's 0?
It's my understanding from the application that both side and rear were 0 requested. And as I mentioned, the planning department has submitted their recommendations with regard to 469 and 470 for approval with 3 specifically identified conditions on the sidewalk. With that, we'll allow the appellant to introduce himself by name and address and make the desired presentation.
Turn on the microphone, hold it close.
Is on.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and member. Currently, I have 4 buildings on the 1215 and 1217 14th Avenue South. And the Metro issued a permit for me to approve that for the 2-car garage entering from 14th Avenue into the unit 1215 and 1217 South, 14th Avenue South. And obviously, we started construction, and then at the approximately 4 weeks, they sent me a note that they stopped the work because they made a mistake and gave us a permit to build a garage in the front entry. And that is not acceptable, and so forth. They want me to stop the work and meet them at the Metro Code, which I did with Mr. Richard. And obviously, we came into a kind of a compromise that we have to get this project going. I don't want to stop and go through the whole process of, and of course, the building was already under construction with the plumbing and everything. So I end up making my garage into the 2-car garage into the living space. Now I requested to have a space in the back for 4. The 2 units in the front, each of them had a 2-car garage. So therefore, I'm requesting for 4 parking space, carport or so for the 2 units in the front. And the 1215 14th Avenue and 1217. And also the sidewalk in the front is completely built not long ago in front of my property, brand new. And they're asking me to set back 4 feet grass and 5 foot sidewalk. Currently, we have 2 feet of grass and 5 foot of sidewalk. And I was just gonna stay with the same sidewalk that we have at the moment on the top side.
I guess I don't understand. I mean, so in the R6A, you can't have the front-facing garage, so they took out the garage in the front, right? So you won't have.
Asked me to move the garage.
Right, so you won't have any, so the two residences that are on 14th Avenue won't have any garages.
No garage at all.
They'll have two spaces.
Yeah, they told me they won't have a garage, you can have a garage. Well, I asked them that they have to have a garage, they have to have a parking space. $500,000 home, I'm not
Right.
gonna be able to sell it without the parking.
So you have the two parking, but I guess it says the rear variance is 20, but you want 3, but I don't see.
Well,
Are
I
you-
have a 2 units in the back, and each of the 2-car garage has a driveway, no problem with that. The 2 unit in the front on 14th Avenue doesn't have no parking because
Right.
they made my garage into the living space.
But if you make that a parking, if that's parking, why do you need the variance? What structure is there?
Well, they're not gonna, well, I mean, I just want to make sure that I have a permit to build a carport in the back of.
Oh,
the
so you want to build a carport with 0,
carport
okay.
I have to have a carport in the back, in my setback, to order to have a 4-car park there.
So what, how far, so the house itself, the back houses are 20 feet back?
Minimum 20 feet.
Sorry, so those meet the setback, okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Can I ask something to John Michael before we, the applicant alluded to he was issued permits. I don't think that's the case in this. It's just that he went there to codes and they said you could only build this way. Am I getting that wrong?
What you've described is my understanding. I do not have any specific information about permits having previously been issued. Maybe just design criteria have been previously reviewed or something. But again, if the board at the end of this hearing decides to punt this to a later date via deferral, we can certainly confirm whatever permits were issued at this property in the past. That was not my understanding, though.
Were you ever issued a building permit?
Sure.
For what, this plan?
I had a building permit, obviously I had a building permit to start the construction. And I got a building permit with approval of the 2-car garage facing 14th Avenue South.
Okay, and then what happened?
And I start the house, I built the house, I did the plumbing, roofing, everything. And then the inspector came and brought the letter to me that you have to stop the work. I said, why? He said, because you need to go on Metro and talk to Mr. Richard.
So how much did you build?
I'm sorry?
Did you build most of the house?
The house was, two building was built completely.
And it's this particular house that you're talking about?
You can see I have a picture of the house.
Okay.
The house was completely roofed and plumbing was done. No electrical, no mechanical yet.
But now, let me ask you the question. So basically, the variances are only for the 2 carports in the back, and the zero side setback is only for that back 20 feet of the property where those carports touch?
Yeah, the back of the property has a 20 feet plus setback currently.
Right.
And my lot is almost 100 feet wide.
But I'm just saying that the only reason you want these variances is so that you can build carports for the 2 front houses.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, and I don't.
But he also wants the sidewalk too.
I just want to have a carport for 4 cars, 2 for this unit and 2 for that unit.
And so you don't have any.
Walk from the front,
Right.
come into the carport.
So you don't have, if the condition was on the variances, that the variances were given only for the building of a carport that was never to be enclosed, that would be in the back 20 feet of your lot, that's okay, because that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in my property, but build a pad for the 4 car with a roof on it, with
Right.
a short wall, that they can park their car securely there.
Right. Okay. And then do you have an issue with planning's recommendation that you pay in the fund and?
He said he did.
Well, the sidewalk, I'm willing to build a sidewalk. The sidewalk in the front is brand new, but when they gave me a permit, they asked me to have a 4-foot setback of grass and 5-foot sidewalk, and can do that. There's no problem with that. Metro told me that you can pay $76, $7,600, something like that. and you don't have to
177.
do it. I said, well, I don't have to do it anyway. The sidewalk is brand new there. If I scratch it.
Our law says you do, actually.
I'm sorry?
Our law that unanimously passed the Metro Council says you do either have to build a new sidewalk, as they told you, or pay into the fund.
Okay, well, as I said to Metro, I mean, I have no problem building a sidewalk because it will cost me half of that.
Okay.
And don't have any problem. But the only problem here is, we had a rain garden, Metro, I mean, the stormwater approved the rain garden in the back of the property. Now we have all parking. I'm moving the rain garden to the front of the houses. By moving the sidewalk 5 feet, 4 feet and 5 feet, we're talking about 9 feet setback from the street. You're gonna get involved with a rain garden in the front. You want me to do that? I have no problem with that. But
Planning recommended, oh, I'm sorry, Alma, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you to define what is a rain garden.
Rain garden is the water coming from the roof line.
It's treated
All
before it
all
leaves the
the
site.
roof water, the water from the roof.
Oh, okay.
They have to go, they don't wanna go to the neighbor or the back alley, so it goes into the rain garden. So we have to build a rain garden.
It's legit.
And I have two of them, one on this house, one on that house. By building a rain garden and the sidewalk from the porch into the sidewalk goes all the way to the back to carport, I don't know how much room you're gonna have a 5-foot sidewalk, 4-foot grass, and the rest of the sidewalk is already built brand new by Metro with a 2-foot setback and the 5-foot
Well,
sidewalk.
Metro Planning, in their recommendation, they did recommend approval with the conditions that you maintain existing sidewalk conditions in a state of good repair. So as I read it, Metro saying he can, as long as he doesn't mess up or he does repair the sidewalk, that it can stay as it is now.
Then there's that unlieu fund contribution number 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I contribute enough. It costing $25,000 each of the garage, turn it into the living space by mistake of Metro. That's what my cost was to build these 2 garages into the living space.
So
Not only counting the parking, I have to build in the back. That's what I'm gonna have to bear.
I mean, it does seem like your hardship is based on misunderstanding or permit issued or something that.
Okay, so what else do you have to add? Anything? Okay. Let's close the public hearing and questions.
Well, it does seem like that the hardship is based on a testified permit issue. Whether it was issued or not, I don't know. But that seems to be the basis of the hardship.
So is the setback that he's asking for just a carport or the house?
No, it's just for the carport. He testified that it was just to build a carport because he had originally wanted front-loaded garages in the first 2 houses, which at some point he testified was after he had gotten a permit that was revoked. He had to revise those plans and put parking in the back, which he's proposing to be.
He's not happy about our new sidewalk bill, but he said it's cheaper for him to build, so he didn't seem to want to pay into the fund.
So I think that, like you said, the hardship is based on the testimony of the permit issue to me.
Okay, so board members, any motions, any more discussion? Motion?
Well, I mean, assuming the testimony was valid and we don't have reason to believe otherwise, based on the specific testimony in this case, I will move that we grant the setback request. In my notes, I have that the rear, it says rear's 20 required and he wants 3. But then we were told earlier that it was 0.
And so you remember?
Required side of 3. So he does request 0.
Okay, so remember John Michael said we need 2 separate motions for 469 and 47.
Right, so this is the motion for 469, that we do grant the side and rear setbacks for the construction of a carport to be located in the rear 20 feet of the property, and that structure never be enclosed.
Okay.
And
what about the sidewalks?
That we approve the sidewalk variance based on the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
That means that he can choose to do their recommendation, or he can build the sidewalk, whichever
Pay
is
into
cheaper
the
for
fund or
him.
build inside. Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next motion.
I'll make the same exact motion for case 470.
Okay. Motion's been made. Is there a second? Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. John Michael.
Good luck.
The next case is number
Same
471
applicant.
involving Mr. David Salimi.
Yep.
Please keep your seat, Mr.
Yep.
Salimi. It involves the property at 1907A and B, Cahal Avenue in Council District Number 7. The request is for a variance from sidewalk requirements in this an R6 zoning district. You see where Cahal there, it comes just across from Pennington and along Burns there being the nearest intersection. Site plan submitted shows the proposed layout for the construction. The recent site visit shows the property nearly finished at this location. View across the street in the upper left-hand corner. Then the view coming up Cahal in the lower right-hand corner and down the side street Burns in the upper left-hand corner. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 471? There is. As a result, Mr. Salimi will have 10 minutes to make the desired presentation. Opponents to the case will have 10 minutes to make the desired presentation. You have the recommendation for planning department in your packet. With that, just for the benefit of our record again, please introduce yourself by name and address as you begin.
My name is David Salimi, owner of Best Build Construction, 1907 Cahal.
Okay.
Yeah. The planning department asked you to build a 2-foot grass strip, 5-foot sidewalk on Cahal, and a 4-foot grass strip and 5-foot sidewalk on Burns, and you had agreed to that?
No, that wasn't my request was from I appealed to, the reason I appealed for the sidewalk, I'm going to build a new sidewalk. The only the issue was the sidewalk was designed, or at least they gave me a permit to build the sidewalk with the 4-foot grass on Cahal, turning into Burns, because I'm building 6 units. And the 2 of the units are on the Cahal, facing Cahal, and then the other 4 are in the Bransford Street. Now they want me to build the sidewalk, going to the corner lot, because the corner lot, and stop at my driveway of the Cahal, the 2 building on Cahal, which is a rear entry garage. Now the 4-foot setback with the 5-foot sidewalk put me 9 feet away from the street. And the problem here is, the issue that I have, 95% of this street is developed, and every one of them is a brand new house. And they all have a 2 feet in grass with a 5-foot sidewalk.
Right, well now, here, this is here's what the planning department recommends. They want us to approve your variance, but what they want is a 2-foot grass strip and 5-foot sidewalk on Cahal.
Yeah.
And then they said on Burns, a 4-foot grass strip and 5-foot sidewalk.
Well, I can do that, but the only issue is when I set back 4 foot of grass and 5 foot, your sidewalk
On Burns.
On Burns Street, your sidewalk gonna be within the 4 foot of my air conditioning system.
Okay.
That's how close it is. If that's acceptable with you, it's fine with me. It doesn't make no difference for me. 4 foot grass or 2 feet grass doesn't make no difference.
Okay. I hear from the opposition.
Stay with that 2 feet.
Okay, very good. John Michael, do you have something?
The benefit for the board is this is what Mr. Salimi agreed to. This was, of course, originally recommended for consent agenda,
Yeah.
so this is something he's
Okay.
worked on
Yes.
with planning.
Okay, let's hear from the opposition. So opposition, please come forward, state your name, address. Please go back to the audience, and we're going to hear from the opposition of name, address, and why you're opposed to this particular request.
So what he's agreed to is a 2-foot grass strip and a 5-foot sidewalk on one side and a 4-foot grass strip and 5-foot sidewalk on the other. So
Name, address, and
Hayes Baker, 2114A Burns.
Okay.
And I don't know a whole lot about the situation with the sidewalk, but my neighbor just asked me to come and speak on their behalf. But,
In opposition? So what don't they like? So all we're hearing today is whether he should build the sidewalks. We don't have any jurisdiction on what it looks like or anything like that.
okay, then that's fine then.
Okay. So you don't have anything to say about the sidewalks? Okay, very good. Let's hear from the applicant again. Please come forward. Okay, let's close the public hearing. Discussion. Motion.
I mean, that it was on the consent agenda to be approved as planning recommended, and I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, motion to put it back on the consent agenda. And is there a second?
I'll
Second. Ms. Sanford, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. John Michael.
Next case for the board's consideration is 2018-475, another sidewalk variance request, this involving the property at 4701 Dakota Avenue in Council District Number 24. The appellant is Old South Construction, LLC, also the owner of the subject property, shown here on the zoning map in RS 7.5 zoning district. The aerial here gives you a layout of the neighborhood there at the intersection of Dakota and 47th. The site plan submitted shows the construction is proposed at this location, and from my somewhat recent site visit, view of the interior of the property in the lower right-hand corner, across the street to the upper, the view up and down the street. Again, the request for a sidewalk variance is always accompanied by a formal recommendation from the Planning Department, which is in your packet. The appellants are present. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 475? Seeing none, the appellants will have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board. Just please introduce yourselves by name and address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Gino Bulso, B-U-L-S-O. I am an attorney here in Nashville. We are here representing Old South Construction, LLC, and we have Moore Russell, our client representative from Old South Construction. As the board knows from review of the record, what we have requested is a variance from the application of the sidewalk ordinance to this property at 4701 Dakota Avenue. This property was acquired by Old South in November of 2017. On February the 27th of this year, Old South applied for a building permit. What has occurred is that the building permit is being held up because in addition to the requested construction by Old South of a sidewalk pursuant to the sidewalk ordinance on this property, there's also been a requirement that Old South also construct a curb and gutter and inlets as well, or pay the $38,000 contribution in lieu of doing anything. And we, of course, have requested that the board grant a variance that would allow Old South to obtain a building permit simply by constructing the sidewalk that is contemplated by the sidewalk ordinance. We do not see how the sidewalk ordinance itself can be read to require construction of curb and gutter and inlets in addition to the sidewalk that is specified in the ordinance. We also, of course, take issue with the fact that, as applied here, Metro is attempting to require the property owner to construct a sidewalk in the public right-of-way outside of the property description of this particular piece of property, which we frankly believe raises due process concerns. But for our purposes today, what we're asking the board to do is to grant a variance from the way this statute, this sidewalk ordinance is being applied, so that we can obtain the building permit simply by constructing the sidewalk.
Okay. So you don't think the current sidewalk ordinance, which unanimously passed the Metro Council, requires you to build curb and gutter? It just requires you to build a sidewalk. That's your argument, Counselor?
That's one of them, yes, Mr. Chairman.
So what makes you think that and we've been doing this for over a year now, I guess, and people have built their curb and gutters, or as you've seen in this meeting, close to them. Why doesn't that apply to your client?
I think the law applies equally to all property owners. When looks at the sidewalk ordinance, one cannot find in it any requirement that a curb and gutter also be constructed. The law, of course, fundamentally has got to be constitutional. And here, as applied to this property, Metro is attempting to require, in order to issue a building permit, that the property owner construct a sidewalk in the public right-of-way. In our view, that raises due process concerns and, in fact, violates our due process rights.
I have a question for Ms. Lamb, our great attorney who's just back from the birth of her child, future zoning administrator one day, maybe future mayor one day. Tell us about the sidewalk ordinance and what is a sidewalk and his curb and gutter kind of argument.
Well, the sidewalk ordinance specifically says there's a section titled Sidewalk Design Standards, and it says that the design of the sidewalk shall comply with approved public works standards. So I think the issue before the board is if you want to grant a variance to the sidewalk, but with respect to the design and whether or not the curb and gutter is required, I think that's a public works issue. And this says it has to, they shall, meaning it's mandatory. If a sidewalk is put in, it shall comply with approved public works standards. So if public works requires curb and gutter.
So that's where curb and gutter is. It's in public works standards, and the sidewalk ordinance very specifically refers to public works, and they're the sidewalk people, I guess.
But if that argument, where is the right place for them to challenge that argument, if not here? I mean, I'm not saying it should be here, but
I would suggest they call Public Works and ask them, is it possible to deviate from that standard? That's not an issue.
I'm just saying if the law says Public Works standard, if Public Works standard also was, now it's sidewalk, but now it's sidewalk, curb, and gutter, and then if it became sidewalk, curb, gutter, and street, because that's what a sidewalk is, according to Public Works, and someone said, oh, man, you gone too far. How do you, I'm just saying, where do you challenge it? I'm not saying
court.
In Chancery Court.
Ultimately, any decision of an administrative agency or a department of any local or state government is potentially subject to challenge in court. And counsel may be in a better position to speak to this. I presume he's done a bit of research on the topic, in fact. But although anything out of the zoning code is subject to an appeal through the Board of Zoning Appeals, as a quasi-judicial board acting at kind of just beyond the administrative capacity en route to Chancery Court, the actions of Public Works with regard to application of the law and their sidewalk standards would potentially be eligible to challenge in court as well. So a remedy exists for an argument like this. We in zoning merely have this question in front of us on sidewalks.
Well, I mean,
yes or no.
So he has to bring it up here.
And that's the end of our work.
He has to bring it up here to get to the next level.
Well, because I don't know. It seems to me like you wouldn't. It seems like they could take that piece straight to court. But
so, Counselor, I mean, your last paragraph of your letter that you gave us should be your argument, in my opinion. It says Metro Stormwater has stepped in and said that the project would require the installation of storm drain inlets for our new curb and gutter if we elect to build the sidewalks and curb and gutter. This process would require additional grading permit, which would need to be completed before any permits issued. So why don't you argue hardship? I mean, you're coming with us with this almost Marbury versus Madison that you shouldn't have to even build this because it really doesn't say it.
I suppose, Mr. Chairman, because in our view, the best way to get this issue before the Chancery Court is through the attack on both the language of the ordinance itself and the way it's being interpreted. Because when we look at the specific language that council referred to under sidewalk design standards, it reads, quote, design of sidewalks shall comply with approved public works standards, close quote. So as Vice Chair Taylor was pointing out, this language clearly is designed to address sidewalks, and now Public Works is putting in curb and gutter, which would not preclude putting in streets at some point.
But what I said, Counselor, is basically we give variances based on usually hardships or topography issues. If you have a topography, you haven't come to us saying that you have a topography issue per se. You're just disputing whether the way the code is written, curb and gutter is included in the sidewalk ordinance. And we've been doing these for about a year, and nobody has raised this, and maybe that's why you want to go to court, but it's pretty clear to us.
I understand, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly am not taking back anything that's in our letter. But with the 5 minutes that we have, I thought it was more appropriate to focus on the two arguments that I've raised. There is, of course, the hardship argument that is in the letter, and we're certainly not disavowing that by any means. But in our view, perhaps the best and most efficient way is simply for this body to grant the variance that's requested that would simply allow the building permit to be issued with the construction of just the sidewalk that's on the plan that's on the screen right now. That would, in our view, comply completely with the sidewalk ordinance. It would not, of course, impose the curb and gutter requirements that are absent from the ordinance, and that's why we have presented the argument today in the way that we have.
Okay, questions for the applicant?
I'm not sure that we have the, maybe you can speak to this, but I'm not sure that we have the authority to parse out the definition in the code. In other words, I don't, and I really am interested in your view on this. I'm not sure. I don't feel like we have the authority to say that the code, we can't give you a variance on part of the definition that you want us to give you the variance on. We either have to give you a variance or we have to deny the request for the variance. And I'm not saying that in the most scholarly way. I'm sorry.
No, I understand. As written, the sidewalk ordinance does not require a variance because there's no express requirement in the ordinance that any property
But
owner...
his argument is curb and gutter, we don't have any power to enforce curb and gutter because it's not specifically in the sidewalk ordinance. It's in this public works, kind of they get to decide.
And ultimately, what this property owner needs is a building permit so that it can build a single-family house. And this body does have the authority.
But as you know, if you were to get denied the sidewalk request from us and have to appeal to Chancery Court, you still don't have a permit until Chancery Court would rule in your favor.
That is correct.
I thought you can get a permit.
That's why that is the less preferred approach. That's a less preferred remedy, but it is one that is available in the event that the applicant's appeal is denied.
I guess I'm not sure how the sidewalk variance keeps you from getting a permit.
You don't get to get a permit until you agree to comply with our sidewalk ordinance.
Well, we sure have seen 80% of them are three-quarters done before we see them, so.
I think, John Michael, isn't there like a document that you sign when you get your permit that you'll eventually comply or something?
For cases that appeal the sidewalk requirements, we issue building permits based upon site plans being submitted that show the sidewalks that are required. For example, a property like this that requires a 5-foot sidewalk, 4-foot planter strip on both frontages of the corner lot would submit a site plan showing exactly that. In the event that the appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals is not successful, they have gotten a building permit based upon showing exactly what they're supposed to go build, and then they'll have to go build it. However, in the event that someone appeals to the BZA and gets a variance, say, for example, they got a total variance and had to build nothing, then they would be allowed to proceed showing the variance and not have to build the sidewalks that way. At the end of the day, in these scenarios, we're protected in that either, 1, a sidewalk gets built, 2, someone pays into the sidewalk fund, or 3, a variance is granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals that allows them to not construct or pay. So in that regard, we try to allow people to move forward with a building permit by showing on the site plan that they will build what the law requires them to build, but allow them to not have to be held up while waiting to go to the BZA, because that can be a 6, 7, even 8-week wait. in some periods.
This wouldn't keep them from moving forward, but it would keep them from getting a use and occupancy permit had their appeals not played out.
Correct. If the appeal doesn't go your way, you're not going to get a UNO until the sidewalk is constructed, or if allowed, payment is made to the sidewalk fund. One other point of clarification, and it's out of deference to council's reference to the letter. They talk about stormwater having been involved in this review, which of course is expected on any case like this. And I failed to state that the Stormwater Management Committee is a similarly quasi-judicial body that reviews questions of that nature. So there is a place to take up those questions, but I was merely responding earlier to the specific question about public works.
So, I don't want to kick this any longer, but in theory, because of the stormwater issue, we could give a variance on the sidewalk.
Well, that's why I said the hardship.
However, that doesn't preclude stormwater from saying, no, you got to have a curb and gutter for stormwater reasons.
Right.
There's still authority for that elsewhere.
And it exists
that is
independent
separate
of the
from this
authorities
issue.
of the Board of Zoning Appeals, of course.
Okay, so Counselor, wrap us up here. Anything else to add?
Nothing substantive, Mr. Chairman. In our view, the most efficient way of handling this piece of property is to grant the variance, allow the property owner to build the sidewalk, allow the building permit to be issued, and that is the request.
When you say sidewalk, and you understand when Metro Planning refers to sidewalk, they refer to the concrete, the curb, and the gutter as the sidewalk together. That's their definition.
That is a definition. It is not a correct definition, because I think if you look at the word sidewalk as in accordance with its natural and ordinary meaning, it refers to a sidewalk. It does not include a curb, gutter, or street.
Okay, very good. Deliberation, that's why we're here.
We've actually had this discussion. I don't remember exactly where we came down, but similar to this, what the definition of the sidewalk was, and it was the whole, what architects call a section, sidewalk, grass, curb, gutter, if those are required in that, whatever that zone requires.
So what do the architects say?
I say that I have, 18, 20 years experience, a lot with Metro, and the sidewalk has always included the curb and gutter. Now, I'm not a civil engineer, but I look at civil engineering plans a lot, and the sidewalk, it's a system with the concrete that's.
What about his argument that basically says the ordinance just says build a sidewalk to, the
Public Works standards,
and then
which is
Public Works says curb and.
Well, they have curb and gutter. I mean, it's just, this is a standard thing that happens. I have photos, actually. I take photos of sidewalks. How crazy, but I know. But here, look, here is a sidewalk. Here is green, the green space. Here's the curb and the gutter. I actually took this photo because a lot of people come to us and say they can't, like the utility pole is a problem. You can't build because of the utility pole, but this shows building around the utility pole.
Let me see.
So it's my view, and I think it's consistent that this body's view has always been that it's the entire assembly or cross section as Public Works. And perhaps there is a legal challenge, and that's fine, but I don't think that's what we're tasked with figuring out.
Because Public Works says that, has defined it, I think the appellant has every right to challenge that in court if they choose to, but I don't see compelling evidence for us to, I don't know that we can, we have the authority to go against it, so I don't.
I think our sidewalk ordinance passed 38-0 in the Metro Council, the legislative body, and we've been hearing these appeals for about a year, and every one of the appeals that we have kind of ruled on, we assume that the sidewalk is also the curb and the gutter to the whole structure. So that's how we have kind of conducted ourselves.
There are a lot of neighborhoods where that might make more sense for it not to be, just in the cases that we've heard, but that's not how councils approached it or Public Works. I mean,
and we have granted variances.
Those streets that aren't engineered for that.
We have granted variance that where because of the civil engineering, the water issues, it was going to make it an expensive proposition because it included the curb and gutter and the infrastructure that went under the curb and gutter.
And I would make the argument that the sidewalk does include the curb and gutter, because when the Metro Council set up the appellate process for the sidewalk ordinance, they gave it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we, for example, can have a smaller curb and gutter, which is part of our overview of being able to regulate sidewalks. So I don't think there's anything in the law. Ms. Lamb, is there anything in the law that just talks about us regulating something called a grass strip or curb and gutter in our rules?
In the BZA rules?
Yes, or any rules that just,
No.
we have something that the Metro Council passed that we have the ability to regulate sidewalks, right?
Correct. You can vary from the sidewalk ordinance.
Which means we could shrink the curb and gutter or even.
I don't know that you can do that because it specifically says the design standards shall,
John
comply with
Michael,
public works standards.
We could alter the grass strip and sidewalk width.
We have altered the grass strip in certain cases, haven't we? And we have that.
The grass strip, yes.
Okay.
Curb and gutter, we have not. Stormwater drains, we have not.
Okay, but the grass strip, yes.
Grass strip, we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's part of the sidewalk because that's part of our overview.
Well, I'll move that we, I mean, does anybody think we have a hardship to? Okay, well, I move that we deny the appeal.
Okay, motion's been made, properly seconded. Any discussion?
I mean, I look forward to hearing if the court has a different opinion of this, of what the definition is.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. John Michael.
Mr. Chairman, the next case is 2018-478 involving the property at 205 Morton Avenue, shown here on the zoning map, an RS 7.5 zone property in Council District Number 16, just off the Nolensville Pike corridor. Jason and Emily McCoy are the appellants and owners of the subject property. The request is for a variance from the height restrictions in that area, particularly with regard to an existing detached garage, shown here in the lower right-hand corner, and attempting to keep it at its current height. View across the street in the upper left-hand corner, the view up and down Morton here in these photographs, but that's your subject and play. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 478? Seeing none, the appellants are present. We'll have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board. I believe the estimates that came back were 18 feet 4 inches for current construction height at that location. Of course, the restriction, I believe, is 16.4, so it's not over by 100 feet, but it is over. That said, with 5 minutes to make the presentation, just please introduce yourselves by name and address.
Hi there. My name is Jason McCoy. I live at 205 Morton Avenue here in Nashville, and this is my wife, Emily. I have some handouts. I don't know if these would be helpful for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just I didn't realize they would have these street view pictures, so hopefully that's helpful for you guys. But our request is for a variance for the maximum allowed knee wall height in our neighborhood, which is 16 foot, as previously stated. The only hardship that we have at this point is the knee wall height was pointed out at 18 foot 4 inches on the framing inspection after we had painted the structure, and we still are under the total height of our primary structure, which is also a zoning requirement for our neighborhood. And my only case for this is complete and utter ignorance. I interpreted a knee wall as one that starts on the second floor of a structure in an attic that spans from the floor to the bottom of the roof truss. So when I had my plans approved and then started building, went through the permitting process and through my inspections, I thought it was good, and then I found out otherwise whenever we scheduled our framing inspection.
Okay, so what's going on upstairs in this structure? Are there any showers up there?
No we weren't allowed to put in a shower. No detached accessory dwelling unit is allowed in our neighborhood, and we have a restrictive covenant on file with Metro.
Okay. Well, this is a second detached garage case. You remember there was one?
Yes.
But
yes.
unlike them, you have 4 letters of support and no letters of opposition. Well done with your neighbors. Any questions for the applicant? Do you have anything else to add?
I think that's it.
Okay, very good. We're going to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Discussion, as I pointed out, 4 letters of support. Nobody here in opposition. 2 feet difference from the actual and architecturally nice little structure.
Well, and the, you know, this is asking for 1 variance, and the previous
yeah, setback and all
had 4. And I think it was a radically different case, even though it, on the surface may appear to have similarities.
And one of the neighbors says, we see the property daily, and it looks great with the new garage. The neighbors were very communicative with us from the start of the project, and we believe the measurement was an honest mistake and negligible in the long run. Please accept our support of the invariance. So communication, not very large difference. Anyone have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the variance to keep the existing detached garage, and the variance is to, 18 feet 4 inches.
What's a second?
And based on the specific information that's been presented in this case and the no damage to the neighbors based on their letters of support.
Okay, motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. Good luck. Well done. John Michael, we are reaching the point of short-term rentals.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to congratulate the board on concluding all zoning cases by 4:14 p.m. That's no small matter. Hats off to all of you. The next case is to be presented.
Because we have a new zoning administrator, actually.
I think the next cases are to be presented are only the short-term rental cases, and it looks like the first one to be presented is case 2018-449 involving the property at 1906 Dabbs Avenue. If the appellant would come forward for that case,
So
please.
318 has been deferred.
That's correct. I'm sorry. 318 was deferred to a later date based upon the appellant having surgery. So wherever the appellant is, Mr. Lizar, God bless and hope you do well. Item A case that will be presented by Mr. Osborne on behalf of code staff.
So we received word about this one through host compliance. We sent a letter on June 1st, 2018. There were about 19 rentals from November 2017 to May of 2018. It looks like the advertisement was removed sometime between June 7th and 12th. No other complaints.
Okay. Please state your name, address, and why you're here.
This is really nerve-wracking. My name is Christina Migliaccio. I live at 1906 Dabbs Ave. I am here today because I was operating an Airbnb in violation without a permit. At the time of my operation, I didn't know I was operating.
So how'd you find out?
Letter in the mail.
And what did you do when you found out?
Well, I read through it and I went on the site and I canceled my
Listings?
My listing,
How
yeah.
many did you cancel?
I actually didn't have any booked, so I
Okay.
didn't have to
Did you
cancel.
take down your listing too?
Yes, it was
Okay.
it's completely off. It has
And
been.
so you were renting out one room at $45 a night?
I was renting, it's 2 rooms. It's a 3-bedroom house, 2 rooms. And I don't really know the price. I just.
Okay, that's what was on here. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know how much.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing. Discussion. Mr. Osborne, what was the date of the letter? 6/1? Okay. Well, I'll move that the zoning administrator did not err in denial of the permit and the applicant be eligible to reapply for a permit after 3 months, which is September 1st.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Give our staff till Monday because, they need to know what's here. So go by Monday and do all the right things. Thank you. John Michael.
Mr. Chairman, the next case is 2018-450, William Lowry, the appellant for the property at 925 Wedgwood Avenue, involving short-term rental operation. Mr. Osborne has the case on behalf of staff.
Do we have an applicant?
Is the applicant here? Come forward.
So we found out about this one through host compliance, sent a notice February 9th, 2018. There were 3 rentals from May of 2017 to July of 2017. It looks like the advertisement was moved around February 8th.
February 8th of this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, while the letter
Any
was-
questions for Mr. Osborne? Okay, please state your name, address, and why we're here.
Hi, my name is William.
Yeah.
My name is William Lowry. I reside at 925 Williswood.
Try to turn on the switch if it's, maybe that's just into the minute.
Hello?
Yes, better, okay.
My name is William Lowry. I reside as a full-time resident at 925 Wedgwood Avenue. I just wrote down my thoughts so I could present it properly. I bought my house in February of 2017, and it's my full-time residence. After moving in, I created an Airbnb account almost as a formality, as I just moved here from out of state. And basically every homeowner I knew simply had a listing in case the opportunity to rent came up. And I thought it would be interesting to explore the concept of taking advantage of the use of my home while I visited my family in Mississippi from time to time. So I created an account. At the time, and this was spring of last year, 2017, I had no idea that a permit was necessary. I did rent it out exactly 3 times for 2 nights apiece over a 4-month period. And then basically, I stopped traveling so much, and I needed the home for my personal use as it's my full-time residence, so I stopped advertising and renting it. However, I never actually took the listing down officially. I just stopped paying attention to it, denying requests, and basically just letting any request lapse. About 8 months later, I got the letter from Codes in the mail. That was February of this year. I immediately took it down. By this time, I had learned that permits were needed to rent out a home, but since I didn't actually rent it out, I didn't think I was in violation for having it listed. Honestly, I never even thought about the fact that it was listed for 8 months because I never even observed or even logged into Airbnb. But when I got your letter, I immediately took it down, and I've never really thought about it again. Until May of this year, I was let go of my job, so I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to get the house and the listing up and running. So I put some work into the house and painted it and bought some furniture. And that's when I went through the full coding process of notifying the neighbors, the floor plans, all that stuff that was on the coding website. I made an appointment to go into the codes office of July of this year, and that's when I found out I had a 1-year ban, which has led me here. So what I'm asking as apologetically and humbly as possible is that I be allowed to reapply for a permit based on my not understanding of the codes, having moved here from out of state, and sincere apologies for not taking the time to research it fully, and the fact that I only rented it for 3 times, and that those 3 renters were well over a year ago, and I've not rented it purposefully or advertised it since June of 2017.
Okay.
So
very
thank you
good.
very much.
Questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing.
And I'll move that since the only documented rental history was well over a year ago, and that the advertisement on Airbnb has been removed for at least 7 months, that the applicant will be eligible to apply for a permit on Monday.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. John Michael, good
Mr.
luck.
Chairman, case number 2018-455 is the next one to be presented to the board. It involves the property at 5620 Stoneway Trail. Jenna Wedgeworth is the appellant. Her representative is present. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 455? Seeing none, the appellant will have 5 minutes to make the desired presentation after the board hears from staff represented by Mr. Osborne.
So we found out about this one through host compliance again. They sent a notice on June 1st, 2018, but it went to the previous owner as it recently changed ownership. I did email with the new owners on 6/14 and copied them on that letter. They had 8 rentals from April 2018 to June 2018, and it looks like it was removed shortly after receiving my email.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Osborne? Oh, thank you. Name, address, why we're here?
Is it working?
Yeah.
All right. So obviously I don't look like a Jenna. That's my wife. My name is Morgan Davis Wedgeworth. I'm also co-owner and co-appellant here in this case. My wife and I recently moved back to Nashville in March of this year. She's a 3rd grade teacher down in Williamson County and couldn't be here today, couldn't take off school. So we bought our first home together shortly after getting married back in March, and one of the reasons we wanted to buy this house in particular was because we saw a short-term rental property opportunity within it. We were unaware of the permit at the time, and so we immediately started an Airbnb listing, renting it out. As you mentioned, we rented it out from April to early June, shut it down as soon as we got word through mutual friends that the previous owners had received the letter. Then started looking into what all the permit entailed. We have paid all of our hotel occupancy taxes on the listings that we already had. So we are current on our taxes for April, May, and June. And I actually have all of the paperwork done and completed to do the permit.
Okay. Very good. Any questions for the applicant? Oh, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing. Discussion. Mr. Harper? Yes? Nothing? Okay. Anyone have a motion?
I'm sorry. The letter was what? The 10th?
Yep.
No.
10th.
7/10. I'll move that the zoning administrator did not err and that the applicant be eligible to apply for permit 3 months from the application date, which was 7/10/18.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. You're eligible, what'd you say, the second?
3 months, the 10th.
3 months from the 10th, okay.
September the 10th.
So September 10th, you'll be eligible to reapply.
That's October.
10/10.
I'm sorry.
10/10, 10/10. 10/10, okay. October 10th, thank you. John Michael.
Mr. Chairman, the next case is 2018-461 involving the property at 1104 Shiloh Drive in Council District Number 23.
Will the applicant please come forward?
Mahmoud Afshari is our appellant. Mr. Afshari present? Coming forward, great. There are opponents present. As a result, both sides will have 10 minutes to make the desired presentation to the board after the board hears from staff, namely Mr. Osborne.
We again found out about this one through host compliance, sent a notice June 1st, 2018. They've operated since at least May 2018 with at least 5 rentals. We received a complaint on September 1st, 2018 that they were still operating. When I looked into that, saw that they were still advertising and issued a warrant. So I'd ask that you defer this case.
You asked it what?
To defer.
Okay. Board members. Mr. Osborne says he wants to defer it. What's your thoughts?
Is the applicant opposed to a deferral?
My name is Mahmoud Afshari. I live on 1104 Shiloh Drive.
Just a minute, there's been a request.
For deferral, okay. So there's been a request for a deferral by Mr. Osborne, but the applicant is not in favor of that. So discussion about the deferral, board members.
Can Mr. Osborne come back for a second?
Mr. Osborne.
Sorry.
I would like.
Wait, just one moment.
Yes.
You want a deferral so you can investigate the allegations?
So we can pursue it in court.
Oh.
But we have opposition here.
How many people are here today in opposition to this case? Okay, 5 people.
I feel we should hear it because there's.
Mr. Chairman, in similar circumstances in the past, the board has chosen to take testimony from both the appellants and those who are here in opposition and reserve judgment or final order until a later date, if need be. That way, nobody's time has been wasted by being here. Okay. And you can actually hear the case, have it on the record, take your vote after a deferral to a later date, and basically kind of have it both ways.
Okay, very good. Please continue. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Mahmoud Afshari. Address is 1104 Shiloh Drive. I have a case with my situation. I have 2 children in college, and I financially stressed a little bit, so I put my house for sale. And after so far no luck, and what happened in May, I decided to put on the Airbnb. Maybe I can make some money to support my children. I asked my agent, Mr. Rene Max, put on it, but I was not aware of to get a permit before to put on Airbnb.
So I asked her to put on, we did. Later on, we find out we have to get the permit. When we went to the zone department, they said, since you started without the payment, so you will be in a probation for a while. So that's what I'm here asking your favor to be granted. I can use Airbnb to support my children.
Okay. But now, you kept renting though after you went, are you still renting?
Oh, please identify yourself for the record, name and address.
My name's Renee Max. I live in the area, 718 Starlet Road, Nashville, Tennessee. I went to Codes because I know Codes very well. I thank you for zoning because we're there all the time. We're luxury builders. We build homes. We contribute to a lot of the income into Nashville, and we appreciate all that you do. I assisted him on selling his home, and everyone kept walking in and walking out, and it needed a lot of upgrades. So my husband's a builder, and we offered to fix it up so that we can sell it quicker. And while we did, we put in $24,000 of our own money to do this. I currently work for somebody that owns 8 Airbnbs here in town. I currently help him operate his cleaning crews, check-in crews. When I first started working for him last November, we started operating in November, and I know he had some legal people on his team getting the permits, but we didn't physically get our permit till April, so I had no idea you had to get the permit right away. If I did, I would have addued because we all abide by the code. So I told him to get the paperwork together. We received a letter. I immediately took it down, and we took all the ads down. I made sure this past week I was on the phone with hotel occupancy. We paid it all in full.
Did you cancel the rentals? I mean, did you cancel?
Yes, I pulled it down. Dirk's
So
Family's down, and Shania Twain's down, and I moved all the bookings to another location.
So the complaint that Codes got that said you were still renting it in 1st of September?
No, we had people in town from the weekend. My daughter's friends were in town from New York. They were here for a fashion thing before Fashion Week. We have people stay at the house constantly. I have a nurse friend that stays there.
It's your home?
No, I put a lot of money into it, so I have the keys to the house, so I can use it when he's out of town. He went out of town. He went to Florida for the weekend. I've been with Larry Lippman and Lippman Group Sotheby's for the past 8 years. I abide by all the code of ethics. We recently changed to RE/MAX. I'm still with Larry Lippman. I still have the home listed for sale. It's right here on MLS. I just changed the price $10,000 because we are selling it still. But until then, I'd like to recoup my funds back that what I put in the house.
So who else besides your daughter and friends have stayed in there since June?
My son's friends from Berkeley, College of Music in Boston. And Anita, his daughter, had friends in town. And we have a builder that's building, and he just sold his home in East Nashville, so we let him and his wife stay and their kids occasionally because we're building their house right now on 14th Avenue. So people are always in and out. I make sure all the trash is taken out constantly when he's out of town.
Does anybody pay anything for that?
The trash?
No, does anybody pay any money to stay?
No.
Okay. Other questions of the applicant? Okay, let's hear from the opposition. You'll have 6 minutes and 25 seconds for rebuttal, so please go back in the audience. In the opposition, please state your name, address, and why you're in opposition to this request.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Kiefer Shepard. I live at 1106 Shiloh Drive. I've lived there for 30 years. This is the property next door to Mr. Muhammad. He lived there for a number of years, was a very good neighbor. He does not live there at this property now, and he has not lived there for the past 6 years. It's my understanding that the zoning for the property where we're at is zone as RS15. It does not call for short short-term rental unless the individual lives at that property. And he does not live at that property, although he gave that address as his property. He has not lived there for the past 6 years now.
Who has lived there? Do you know?
There were at first 2 college students that were attending TSU University for only a year or 2. They about tore the place down. It was in really bad repair when they moved out. I mowed the grass for them several times while they lived there. After he moved out, a gentleman lived there, and they lived there for about 4 or 5 years. A very nice couple. They took good care of the property, although there has been very little repair done on the property for the past 5 or 6 years, up until the past month or so. Once they could not sell the property, it was not sellable. I knew it when it came on the market because it had not been fixed up for several years. Then they have recently put in, as she said, quite a bit of work in the property. I feel like that if this short-term rental was granted, there are other pieces of property on the market for to sell, that many other pieces of property then might come. Also, you would have to give them a variance for short-term rental. All of the short-term rental is going to bring down the property in the area, the property value of it. We see all of this stuff on TV about, I don't know, parties going on, how many people are there. There's no control of it. It can get out of hand. And that's one of the reasons, part of the reasons where I'm opposed to it.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Walhart. I live at 1214 Davidson Road. I am strongly opposed to granting this appeal. As you could hear from the testimony, it looks like the owners simply just checked out. People are coming in and out. This is one of the things that we in the neighborhood are concerned about. Respectfully, I'd also point out that you heard a lot of testimony about why an appeal should be granted, and from what I understand, the young lady that was the realtor that was doing the testimony has absolutely no ownership interest in the property. She has no vested interest in the outcome of the neighborhood other than the investment that she's made in the property, and it sounds to me like that investment is made simply for to try to recoup something on the back end of the resale value. So I'd ask that this board disregard that portion of the testimony. Everyone knows that there's a qualitative difference between how people treat a property when they are long-term vested in the neighborhood versus short-term invested in the neighborhood. And here, that's what my family, who purchased our house in 2014, that's what we looked for. We knew where we could go if we wanted to be part of tourists coming in and out and whatnot. And we chose a house that was nestled in a neighborhood. We love this neighborhood. We're vested in this neighborhood. And we would ask that this appeal be denied so that we can continue to enjoy our neighborhood and keep people there that can enjoy it. And I'd also like to say, just in closing, I don't hear any prejudice or hardship to the owner here. It sounds like he wants to sell the property, and I think the board should deny the appeal. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gail Jaggers. I live at 869 Belton Drive, within 600 feet of the property in question. I just want to point out that our codes were designed to protect our property values and the character of the neighborhood, and short-term rentals change all of that. We have a lot of people moving into our neighborhood now building $1 million homes, and they do that with the understanding that you will honor those codes that protect our value of our homes and our property. We have a lot of elderly people who are now having to sell their homes. They were the original homeowners when the subdivision was built. They're having to go into assisted living, and they need to get the best value out of their homes that they can. We pay a really high rate of taxes to live in a neighborhood that preserves these codes. And we feel that short-term rentals, when the owner does not live in the home, poses some safety and risk problems. It's going to alter the character of our neighborhood, and it devalues our property. So we hope that you will keep that in mind today when you make your decision.
Okay, next.
I'm James Borkart. I've lived there since 1985. I live 2 doors away. I live at 1108 Shiloh. I strongly recommend that you deny the appeal for the Airbnb. I looked at your website, your zoning website, and I noticed that letter that you sent out, we're in a zone RS 15, and in that zone, you're not allowed to do an Airbnb if the owner does not occupy that residence. And so he doesn't live there. And so what they're requesting is an Airbnb without owner occupation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, you live 2 doors down? Yeah. Excuse me, I'm over here, this way. Sorry, you said you live 2 doors down. Do you? I
sent you a letter.
All right, but do you agree with your neighbor that that Mr. Afshari doesn't live on that property and hasn't for a while?
Yes, I do.
Who lives there?
I would just.
Okay.
How do you know it's not him?
I would just like to add that you also consider, once you give him a variance, there are going to be other requests that follow. And this is going to totally change the values of our property and the character of our neighborhood. So, you know, what good are the zoning codes if someone can just come in here and ask you to ignore them?
Okay, we have one more person in opposition that wants to speak.
Yes, I know, in fact, that Mac has not lived there, and he knows that for the past 6 years. The last people living there was what was his name? I asked my wife.
Cindy and Jim.
Cindy and Jim. He was the Alaskan balladeer, great songwriter. I have CDs from him. He was this past year awarded a doctorate from the University of Alaska. They did not want to move. He went up on the rent on them, and based upon going up on the rent, they told me that the year before he went up $400. They told him he wouldn't go up again for 5 years, and he went up again another $100, and they had to move. There's a sign in front of the property right now that says that it's in violation. I do not know what she said to people. There were people in there last weekend. I saw them packing up and leaving. There were people in there the week before. They were packing up and leaving. It looks like there was a trailer with a top that looks like one of the vans that sells stuff downtown. Now, I don't know that for a fact. The weekend before, there was somebody. The weekend before, I didn't see that. I know 5 weekends before that, there was at least 6 people in there. I spoke to one of them, a young lady, because I went over to cut the hedge on that side and knocked at the door to see if I could come in and cut the hedge. They said no, they didn't live there. I thought somebody bought it. They said that, well, there were 3 or 4 more in the house asleep, but they weren't up yet, and it was 10 o'clock. That's what I know about what's going on the property right now.
Okay.
I want to get 2 things clarified for you all, either Mr. Michael or Mr. Osborne. One is that all the testimony is good information that they don't live there, but that's not what is before us today. And so the procedure is that if we do allow them to apply for a permit at some point, then that will be determined then, whether or not they occupy the home. Correct? Is that correct? Yes. Okay. The other point was that if they were allowed to have a permit and they sell the home, that permit would not be transferred to the new owner.
They have to apply and comply with all the rules related to short-term rentals.
And that's correct as well. Okay.
Okay, so let's hear from the applicant again. Do you have anything else to add? Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
So we're going to hear from the applicant again, and this is rebuttal testimony, so please respond to what you heard.
May I ask a question first?
Sure, go ahead.
Why are you seeking the permit if you are trying to sell the property?
I sold it. I put the property for sale just to cover some of my expenses. But since it is not selling right now, I couldn't sell it. So that's what I put on the Airbnb for a while.
Is there an intent to sell at some point again?
Is there what?
It's on the market. Okay.
All right.
But it still is in the
Why
market.
are you seeking the permit for the Airbnb, the short-term rental property? Until it sells?
Yeah. I'll either get it when it sells, or I can keep it from Airbnb. There's Airbnb, I'd like to point out, right, or I can see it from the front door. It's on Davidson Road. It has a permit. There's a bunch of permits in Westmead and Crestmead. I live in that area. It's a beautiful area. I've been here 14 years in the same house. I love it. I truly love my neighbors. And we feel that we brought property values up on the street. We were the ugly duckling, now we're the beautiful swan. We did a fabulous job on that house. And I want to mention that it was $24,000 just for materials and crews. It's not to mention the time for my husband and I. We sold a house recently that we built, and we took everything from that proceeds to help Mr. Ashari out and his family. My daughter used to go to school with his daughter. They're very close, still to this day, since we moved here. So I think we bring a lot of tourism into Nashville. We pay the taxes. We bring a lot of revenue, and we're very careful on screening guests. And I'm very hands-on working with the other gentleman that I work for 8 years, for 8 properties. I screen guests, I check them in personally. I'm always there. I'm there in 5 minutes if they need something. And we're very, very strict on the echelon of who we bring in. We don't bring in anyone. They have to have a background check and a certain ID. And we abide by the codes. It shows for all the building we've done in Nashville. We built the most expensive house in Sylvan Park. We are featured in the Tennessean, my husband and I, Classic Homes, and we respect everything that Metro Codes does, and we would abide by the rules if you'd give us a short variance to reapply for a permit.
I would like to ask a question. Is it your testimony that Mr. Ashari does live in that residence?
Yes.
My daughter, when sometimes she comes to Nashville, she lives over there. And once in a while, I leave over there because I'm traveling in different city, and then come back, I leave over there at night. But it is not permanently living in that place.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, we are going to close the public hearing. Now, as John Michael said at the beginning of this case, there was a request from Mr. Osborne to defer this. We have heard the testimony of both sides, and we can still kind of defer our ruling.
Well, I just ask, because I get to sit next to the attorney.
Really our liaison.
I know. And, because it definitely feels to me like there's an awful lot going on that needs some further exploration than maybe we should have, meaning environmental court should probably sort this out before we sort this out. And I think that for the neighbors, just for their information, if it does go to environmental court and they are found guilty of renting it in an improper way, then the penalty that they can give is much greater than what we can give. And so for that reason, I think it's probably important for us to let environmental court sort it out and us to defer this until after the environmental court has made their judgment, because it'll either render our judgment moot or we'll have a chance to revisit this and do that. So I will move to defer this case until after it's been heard by environmental court.
Motion to defer, is there a second?
Yes.
Any discussion about the deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's deferred until the environmental court action.
Mr. Chairman, the next case to be heard is 2018-465 involving the property at 2165 24th Avenue North. Candace Salter is the appellant. Derek Salter and Crystal Duncan are the appellants. As a short-term rental case, staff will make the presentation by Mr. Osborne, then we'll hear from the appellants. Is there anyone here in opposition to case number 465? No, I think not.
David leave?
Yeah, he had an.
I'm going to leave in a few minutes, too. We might get through with this if
Okay.
we hurry.
All right, ma'am, let's go, Robert.
All right, so this one was brought to my attention when I received a complaint about another property, 1829B and 1912A, I think 16th Avenue North. And I received a complaint about those properties for them not being owner-occupied. And upon doing that research, found that to be true, and a 3-year injunction was ordered by the court.
On which property?
1829B, 16th Avenue North, and 1912A. So that's how I got to looking into this property. While doing that research, I emailed with the permit holders for those properties that had owner-occupied permits, asked them about it. They sent me driver's licenses that said those addresses. They even sent me a lease that said they had somebody at the address for the 437 Summit Oaks Drive, which I paid a visit to and found their son living at, and they had no idea who I referenced on the lease, asking if they lived there so I could talk to them.
So this is one that you would like to defer to environmental court?
No. But I have seen reviews, because this is managed through a company, so I'm not exactly sure if the operation ceased or not. I don't believe it has, because I can see reviews from their profile that show reviews from August that don't match the reviews from their other property that they removed. So there's reviews for a property that we can't see. So it's been operating somewhere and they don't have any other permits. I know they advertise several other properties, but no other ones have been removed that I'm aware of.
Okay. So I'm confused. Are you all confused?
Yeah, a little bit. How are they here if the environmental, I guess they filed on their own and that's.
Yeah, so that's a separate case, but it's one of the same owners for this property.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that an owner of this property has another owner-occupied?
He did. We found out it was fraudulent and took it to court and got a 3-year injunction on the property.
Okay.
So what triggered this to be canceled was because Derek Salter was added to the deed. So a cancellation letter was sent on 6/27, and we sent the corresponding host letter on July 3rd. We've received complaints that this is still operating as recently as 8/27. As far as I can tell, the advertisement was removed on 7/9, but like I said, there are reviews for properties out there that we can't match to any of their other listings that are associated with their profile. But when this one was removed, it removes the title for it. So we can see, and I can match the ones to the other property that they delisted, but there are these ones that aren't attached to anything that I believe are to this property.
Okay.
So I believe they've kept operating until at least August.
My name is Crystal Duncan. I reside at 2165 24th Avenue North.
And I'm Derek Salter.
Okay. And where do you reside?
1829B, 16th Avenue North.
But you own part of this property? But are you on the deed of this property?
So she purchased the property back in November. She borrowed some money from me. She used her home as collateral, added me to the deed at that particular point in time. She had already had a permit. She was up and running. We managed the property for her. That's what we do. What he's referring to has nothing to do with her.
I cannot hear what he's saying. Would you ask him?
What he is referring to has nothing to do with her. That is something totally different, isolated, and separate. He's been targeting me and my family for quite some time now, And this is not the first instance we've had with other clients that we've had because of that. He's trying to lump everything into one pile, and it's not like that. It's not that simple. This is something totally different, isolated, has nothing to do with what he just mentioned, 1829, 1912. Those other two addresses have nothing to do with 2165.
Right, but when the ownership of a property changes, which it did with you being on the deed, then it has to be looked at again, and then the flag is obviously raised.
Absolutely. So we didn't know at the time when she added me on. She didn't sell me the house. She just added me to the deed to use it as collateral for her business. I gave her a loan at that particular time.
Yes, I think our zoning administrator would like to say something.
Yeah, basically any transfer or alteration of the ownership structure, whether it goes from John Michael to the Michael Family Trust, from the Osborne Realty Corp. To Bob Osborne, or adding another person to a deed, adding another person to another deed is changing the ownership structure.
Right.
Consistently, the zoning division of the Codes Department has always canceled permits based upon that as a change in the ownership structure as required under 1716-250 Section E.
That particular piece of information is new, and we didn't know it because the home didn't sell.
So you got a letter, and you got a letter in early July?
Yes, she received a letter.
And when did you stop renting the property?
The property was immediately removed. She was out of town. She got back in town. She called me and said, hey, I got this letter. She took a picture of it and sent it over to me. And I said, we need to take the listing down, and we took it down immediately.
And then, but when did you last rent the property?
We haven't rented the property.
Okay, and then the codes folks had the computer system said it was still operating on August 27th.
That's not correct. We have about 10 homes in Nashville that we have for short-term rentals.
That your company manages, is that what you're telling me?
That's correct.
Is there anybody have questions? What else? Is there anything else you'd like to?
Yes, like I said, the information that he was giving you guys has nothing to do with this young lady. That's totally a judgment between him, my wife, and myself. This has nothing to do with her.
Okay. Anything else? We'll close the public hearing. Discussion?
Can't get past the environmental court 3-year injunctions.
I think that was for a different property. Yeah, that was for a different property.
Very complicated.
Well, the flag, I mean, I think that this has to do with the fact that Mr. Salter has a number of other properties that he's associated with that make it confusing in terms of wondering, figuring out which is owner occupied and which is not.
I guess I can't get past these complaints that there's a revolving door of bachelor parties that bring a parking lot of cars and unwanted noise, constantly loose trash. Sounds pretty bad for the neighborhood.
Anybody have a sense of motion or error or time period?
Was the complaint received in August? Was that just a call in, Mr. Osborne?
Yes, that was a call made to the short-term rental hotline.
Okay. But it's the applicant's testimony that the home has not been rented at all as a short-term rental?
No, not at this time.
And the last rental was when?
She got back around July the 10th. So during that time, she received that letter while she was on vacation. So someone was there that weekend.
Okay.
July, but after we received the letter and she gave it to me, it immediately was taken down.
Did you cancel any bookings, or were there any bookings at that time?
They were transferred into other rentals that we have.
Any motion?
You know, I think there is probably some confusion in this property and the owner, but the fact that it was previously permitted, it seems to me that they ought to be eligible to reapply 90 days from the date of this application, which was July 19th. And so therefore, I would make a motion that the zoning administrator did not err, but based upon the facts that have been presented, the applicant should be allowed to apply 90 days from July 19th, 2018.
Is there a second? Got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes 4-1.
Mr. Vice Chairman, the next case for the board's consideration is 2018-466.
John, can we ask Mr. Osborne, this may be unprecedented. I know we have about 2 minutes for some of the folks. Can I get Robert to just, the last two cases, I know based on the testimony, the one was ad was removed in March. The other, the ad was removed in July. And both, did you have serious issues with either of these cases?
No, sir.
Okay. Then let's get case 466 and 468 to, can we have both come up and then make two motions?
This is like the night court version of BZA.
Yeah.
Hey, what's
So-
up? My name's
Yeah.
Casey.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
So are you Casey Culver? Yes. And it appears that you did everything you were supposed to do, and you last rented the property in March?
Yes.
Okay.
Including paying the taxes.
Okay. And you're Mr. Wigington? And you have not rented since July 20th? Okay. Are there questions specific to these two cases? Is there anything that you all would like to add?
I was nervous until now.
Okay.
Okay.
You had mentioned that Mr. Culver had rented as recently as March. Our records indicate it was November.
Of last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He took that.
Maybe the ad was removed. Okay. Is there any questions? Then I'll close the public hearing on both cases. And I'll make a motion that in case 466, because the last rental was last November, that Mr. Culver will be eligible to apply for a permit on Monday.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
On the last case we had, they hadn't rented the property at all, and we did 90 days from the date of the appeal. You know, I would just say that, but that was on my motion, so.
Yeah.
That's on 468.
Well, and
Sorry, I can't count. There are 5 of us, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, are we talking about 468?
466 was.
We're back at 466?
466 eligible Monday, last rented in November of 2017.
Okay,
And then, did you vote for that?
sure, yes.
That passes 4, and you voted against or voted for?
Against.
Okay, 4-1, 466. And then on 468, I'll move that the zoning administrator did not err and the applicant is eligible to apply 3 months after the application date of 7/20, which would be October 20.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Same reason.
That was from the application date, 90 days from the application date.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, that was I made your motion.
Yes.
So,
I'll approve my motion. I'm sorry.
Is that 5-0?
Yes.
5-0.
Concludes the board's cases. The next BZA meeting will take place on September the 20th.
That was some serious.
He is ready to be out of here.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.